Okay, fantastic. Good evening, everyone. I'm Pat Moore. I am the chair of the Quality of Life Committee, and Mariama James is here. She is the vice chair, and Lucian Reynolds, our district manager, is here. And Mimi Flynn is actually co-hosting and helping Lucian tonight. So thank you, everyone. So our first item on our agenda is a resolution there about public bathrooms. And Betty was kind enough to write this for us. So Betty and Justine and Mimi and I are on this task force with CB5 and CB6. And we have, for the last couple of months, been discussing the fact that more public toilets, we have a few, but more public toilets are needed, not only in Manhattan, but in the entire city, but we've been concentrating on Manhattan. So the reso has been sent out to the board members, the committee members. And Betty, can I turn this over to you to discuss? If you
Yes,
want
if you
to.
want.
Yeah, sure.
What do you want me to do with it?
Well, I don't think people have had time to really read it. Do you want to add anything else to while they're reading it?
No, this actually was first started by Julie Chow from CB5, who put a lot of work into public toilets in New York City. But anyway, this is really establishes the need for them, not the solutions, the need. So, there is a paucity, especially those that are 24-hour, 365-day a year. And this is a longstanding, so you've probably seen lots of articles about it. The availability is essential, so it's showing that for basic human need. So I'm going to go to my own copy.
Okay. Mimi, would you like to add anything about the task force that we've been involved in?
Well, overall, I think that it's important to note that this resolution has come from a lot of research. We've spoken to, many different stakeholders in the public restroom realm of New York, and we've learned a lot about what it takes to maintain and run a public restroom in the city, from various different sources, including the group that runs the famous Bryant Park restroom, and our own Battery Park City restrooms in the the Battery Park City Authority maintains, just to name a couple. And so we've had a lot of background into this. And so it's not just, hey, we need bathrooms. Like, we've really looked into this.
And we've also discussed one type versus another type. We've looked at bathrooms in other cities and other countries. And we've talked about ADA accessible bathrooms. So, and we've talked about homeless people needing to have access. Everyone does, but in particular, people who are not housed need access 24/7, as Betty just said. So I don't know if there's anything else that I've given you time to kind of skim or actually read if you've been able to this reso. Does anyone have any questions? I see Diane Stein's hand is up.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yep.
I just glanced at it very quickly. Is there anything about maintaining security and also cleanliness, or hygiene or sanitation in the bathrooms, public bathrooms?
Yes.
Yep. Betty?
Oh, okay.
There is awareness that the safety, cleanliness, maintenance, and even operational status vary widely, even amongst the public bathrooms that rate an acceptable level in all areas. Too many of the scarce bathrooms are avoided by the public due to a lack of care, and so it goes on from there. Want to add anything to that, Betty?
No, that is one of the issues, is people being able to locate them being acceptable, even for those that do exist.
So wayfinding, some sort of,
Ability to locate them.
yeah, signs that actually tell people where they are, because it's no sense in having them if you can't access, you don't know where they are. Mitch, I see your hand is up.
Yes, I actually was going to say ask the same thing as Diane, and I'm reading. I read those that whereas that Betty just mentioned, and I mean I agree with everything, but I don't see then the whereas that we also want some type of security, because it can't be. I mean, we don't live in a perfect society, so everything that Betty has written in the safety cleanliness is 1,000% accurate, but then I would like to say and we'd like it to be however words you want to use, like, this, just like they have it at Bryant Park or something else, where there is some type of uh, official, non-official, person maintaining the line and, making sure nobody goes to sleep in there or floods it or something like that. I think that would be something that should be in here.
Well, a couple of things. Like Betty said, this is a reso, first of all, that's asked, stating the fact that we need to have public bathrooms.
Of course,
There
and
are
all
other
agreed.
reso-
Yeah.
There are other resos that will follow,
Okay.
especially because we want to take this to borough board. We want all of the Manhattan borough, community boards to become engaged with this topic and hopefully sign on to this.
So you'd rather leave that
That's
out right now? I mean,
number one.
I support everything Betty said, but
Number
I'm saying you'd
two, to
rather
have a
leave out that
system
extra thing?
well, let me just finish. So the other thing is that it costs a lot of money to have attendants at the bathrooms, and so we're not actually in this resolution, we're not saying what kinds of bathrooms that we want to have. We understand that in some there will be attendants, and in others there may not be the need for them. I
Actually,
don't
no, Pat,
know, Betty,
even in the self-cleaning
what
bathrooms,
you
Pat,
think?
even in the self-cleaning bathrooms, you need an attendant to manage the line so that other things are not happening. And that's not to exclude homeless people or anything like that. But there's, even when in San Francisco at the self-cleaning bathrooms, there was a person managing the line when people were cutting in or other people were bullying other people because they had to go, sooner than somebody else, and to prevent stuff like that. It was more than just maintenance. It was like a security type thing.
Yeah, Mitch, we've spoken to the people that maintain those restrooms, and we know about all of those issues. This is just a statement of issue. It's not a solution.
Break it up.
Okay.
We'll have a solution. We'll have more solutions moving forward. We're essentially going to inundate the universe with lots of bathrooms.
Okay. No problem.
I'm sorry, and am I the only one's having trouble with the audio?
No,
Mine's breaking up a little.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did I lose you? Can you
No.
hear me?
yes,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah, I hear you. Sometimes you break up a little bit.
Yes,
Breaking up is hard to
breaking
do.
up on mine. So, Mitch, are you okay with our answers?
Yes, and like I said, I personally would prefer it to be in here, but of course I'm for everything else that's in here, and I'm going to support it also as a starting point. I just wanted to,
And then
bring up
at
that
some
point.
point, we actually get to the point where, we discuss real
Sure.
concrete locations for bathrooms, and I think we're going to have to discuss, whether they will have attendance. Attendance, the bathroom that we know has an attendant, it's $150,000 a year to maintain attendance. And so that's a lot of money.
I know but it's short-sightedness as opposed to like a knifing or something else that's going to happen if some two people get into a fight.
Okay, but we just need to
Or if
get all these.
somebody's lurking in the bathroom too.
Well, we need
If
to
you
get
want
all
to start with
these-
this, I'm okay. Obviously,
Hold on,
it's
guys.
all good.
Hold on.
It is not universal that everybody believes that attendees are needed in all locations.
Really?
Battery Park City Authority does not use them. Battery
Everybody
Park
doesn't live in
City
Battery
does
Park.
not utilize
So that's
them.
what we're saying. Some will have attendance and some will not.
Won't.
Until there's a problem, it's like that's why we live in a reactive society instead
Mitch,
of a proactive.
Mitch, are
Things
you
don't
listening?
happen.
But what we're saying though is that when we get to concrete where we're actually talking about certain locations, certain types of bathrooms, then we can discuss attendance. Not every bathroom is going to need to have an attendant.
I disagree. Some will need it more than others, but I would think that every Okay, but
But there are bathrooms in existence that don't have attendants and they work fine. There's no trouble in Battery Park City.
right, okay, until there is. But I'm
Until there is.
I'm okay with this. I'm gonna vote with you guys because it's a great thing, you know?
Okay, thank you. Vicky, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, it is. Thank you, Pat. I was just going to add that this is a terrific idea and a great resolution. Just as an architect, I would say, all over the world, there are many solutions to this. And self-cleaning bathrooms for what, a quarter? I know this isn't the time to discuss the solution now, but just to prepare, it would be good to, have a review and research. I wouldn't even mind helping you with that about what the options are that might deal with, cleanliness most of all. And I think in terms of safety, they give you only like a certain amount of time and then you have to leave, right? Otherwise, the whole place get rinsed out. I mean, I hadn't thought about this in a long time, but I'm just saying New York City should not think that we're the first ones to do this. There's lots of history behind. Please let me know if you need help and I can reach out to a bunch of suppliers that could give us some great advice when you're ready to make that decision.
Great, thanks. Now, you might not have been here when we first discussed it because we've been working. There's a task force that Betty and Justine and Mimi and I have been on, and we've been working on this for months in conjunction with CB5 and CB6.
Yeah, I did. Okay.
Right, and so there's been quite a bit of research, but we would welcome any information that you have. Also, the borough president is also proposing some legislation about getting public bathrooms in.
Right. This isn't the first time a city of our size is doing it or a big city.
Well, we hope they're going to do it, right? This is just a start.
Yeah, exactly. There are many precedents. So if you ever need anything, Betty, please let me know. I'd be delighted to help.
Pat, what about the government office buildings? In the past, I've heard from some other members stating that they're supposed to let people use the bathrooms. What's the status with that?
That's a little more complicated than just that. You would have to have a reason for going into the office building. It isn't what I thought also is that you could just use it, but you have to have a reason that you're going into the building, and then you have to have access to the bathrooms. They can't stop you from using them, but it isn't as though there's signage out that says these bathrooms are open.
Of course, they can stop you. We can't get it. We can't get into the building where we would have our meetings. We can't get in there without going through security. And if we just say we want to use the bathroom, they're not going to let us come in.
Exactly. All right, Mitch. Let me get some other people who haven't spoken yet. So Jill, then Mariama.
I saw something in the reso about changing tables, but is there anything about toddlers? Because although my children are grown, one of the greatest nightmares of any caregiver to young children or a parent of young children is they desperately need bathrooms. And since you talk about different classes, for lack of a better term, if that's not included, I would suggest including the need for toddlers or young children.
I see that on the third whereas.
What it is?
It says
Mitch, hold on.
Pregnant women and small children.
Let me finish. So Jill, sorry. What do you mean toddlers? About the changing tables? Is that?
No, when I saw the thing about TikTok and the codes, when my when my children were being toilet trained, or they were young toddlers, people would share codes. There's a desperate need when you have young children with you to have access to bathrooms because they can't hold it and they don't tell you until it's too late.
So you're just saying.
Is that in there?
Yes, it is.
No, I mean, it's in there because, well, Betty, go ahead. Sorry.
No, the need is much more general. She's picking a particular group. There are a number of people who have very problems with retention and with urgency. Small children tend to be in that group if those without diapers, because again, if they're with diapers, not a big a deal. But there are lots of adults who have problems too. with colitis, with neurological diseases, with other problems. So while people are going to look at their pet group that they think of, we tried to stay a much more general to the broader population that have these issues.
Okay, I think that children are a specific case in point in their need for
Actually,
access
they
to
aren't.
bathrooms.
They
Eh,
aren't.
No, because,
The issue
yeah, I
is
agree
for
with
them
Betty on
is
that.
one,
Okay.
if they don't need a changing table, they either need more space because there's a caregiver plus the
Yes,
person. Now, whether the
exactly.
person has a stroke and you're helping your grandmother, or whether you're somebody looking after a child, the point is they need more space because it's multiple people in a group that need to be able to be within the toilet area. So that's just an issue that needs to be done. So I know people don't like to group them, but in reality, that's the group.
All right, I mean, I too support this and will vote for it, but I do think that the needs of young children are unique.
Okay, you're allowed to have that, and that's fine. But I think as we get more specific in the future, maybe we'll break out different groups. But at the moment, it is asking for the fact that we need to have bathrooms, and there are a lot, as Betty said, there are lots of groups of people who need to have bathrooms. So,
It's already included,
um,
Betty already included in the third where.
the changing table, Mitch, thanks. The changing table part is in there. Mariama?
Yeah, so I agree with Diane and with Mitch as well to a degree. I don't think we need to over specify, but I think that if we're calling for 24-hour day use, then we also need to call for 24-hour day maintenance and or security, whatever that means, or whatever that ultimately turns out to be. Whether it's a camera or an actual person standing there or a door that locks behind you or whatever, it should be 24 hours if people are going to be using it for 24 hours. Otherwise, we're asking for trouble, I think.
Yeah, and we don't disagree, but I think we can get, again, more specific in the future.
But
I don't
we're
think
specifying 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. I think that we should go ahead and add not only should the bathroom be open, but it should be maintained and protected during those parameters as well. And we don't have to say how. We don't have to specify how, but we should ask for it.
Um, I'm sorry, I'm just thinking for a second.
It's in the be it further resolved. It says 24 hours a day, 365 days a
No, no.
year. So,
Yeah, exactly. But I'm just not sure that we need to add at the moment the things about the security. And I mean, we could add it, but I don't think it's necessary at the moment, but we could just add a sentence that says, Betty, do you have an objection to that? That we
Yes,
added,
no, I can tell you the reason why it's not in here, because we've had so many discussions as a working group.
right.
Some of these toilets, people seem to be thinking freestanding, or I don't know what else they're thinking. They can be in restaurants, they can be in bars, they can be in department stores, they can be in hotels. So some of these comments about we need to have security monitoring them doesn't make sense for all cases.
well,
Those
I'm
are already
saying we
We
don't
don't want to get into solutions, we want to deal with the need.
I understand that, and that makes sense, and I appreciate that clarification. But what I'm saying is that we don't need to specify what type of security. So in the cases that you mentioned, they'd already have security because they'd be located in a place that's already protected. But if we say we want it in general without specifying how, those places are automatically covered, and the places that are outside and freestanding will also absolutely have to have maintenance and security. Because if a woman goes to use the bathroom at 4 o'clock in the morning and nobody's there and there's a pervert waiting inside, we're all going to be very sorry that if we weren't careful and specified something, or a child that's to go in the bathroom, or whatever.
Okay, so I am not opposed to putting a little sentence in that says that. But again, what we're saying is that when we get to being specific about which bathrooms and where they're located, we could then be specific about what that individual bathroom's needs are.
But
We can agree on that, Pat.
I'm
but-
agreeing. I'm agreeing with
Mitch,
you on.
Mitch.
I'm agreeing with you and Betty and all the people that worked on it. I appreciate all the work you guys have put into it, all the boards that were involved, whoever was involved. What I'm saying is that I agree with you that we need not be specific now, about the types of security and or maintenance. But I do think that we need to be clear that some type is required, even if that type turns out to be the fact that the bathroom is located in a store that's open 24 hours a day automatically makes it protected.
All right, so then I don't have a problem. Sorry, I understand what Betty is saying. I don't have a problem if we put in after the 365 days per year, um, something to the effect of with security and maintenance.
Although you're ruling out a lot of possibilities, so
Well,
What
this
does
doesn't
the
even-
what?
I think it's a mistake.
it doesn't even have to be worded that way. As long, if we're saying let them be open and accessible 24 hours a day, open, accessible, safe, and clean. And we don't have to say how.
Okay, safe and clean. I don't mind adding safe and clean to it.
How could anybody be against security for us?
Okay, Mitch, wait your turn, please.
No, but
Please.
what Mariana said is so, to me, is so non-controversial.
We're not debating it. It's going
Okay.
in. Safe and clean is fine. It's safe and clean is fine. All right. So, Lucian, are you there? Is that something that you can just add?
Yeah, I can add safe and clean to the
Okay.
be it further resolved
365
statement
days.
about
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
and
Maintain
fro.
safe and clean.
Okay. Thank you. Who else is there? Who else has their hands up? Vicky, did you have your hand up because you had something else to say? Vicky? No? Who else? Anyone else? Let's see. Anyone from
There's
the
some in the
public?
attendance who have their.
I was just gonna ask, anyone from the public? Between Mimi and Lucian, can you see any hands that are up?
Yeah, we have a call-in user with their hand up, and then we have Dushant Rajput from DDC. We'll start with Dushant in case he may have an engineering point of view here. Dushant, you can
And Diane Lapson has.
unmute. Is Diane Lapson's hand up? I didn't see that.
It was.
Dushant, you can unmute yourself.
And I don't see Diane Lapson.
Yes, good evening. This is Dushyant.
Hi.
And Iyad Mazouk has also joined over there, director. And I don't think he can unmute himself. So can you do that, Dushyant?
Who do you want? The call-in user? I can unmute the call-in user. That's who you mean?
Iyad Mazouk, director, management construction.
Okay, but Dushant, did you have something you wanted to add to the public bathrooms discussion?
No.
Oh,
Thank
okay. Okay.
Okay, we're gonna
So,
go
who else?
to the call-in user then. Call-in user, you have to unmute yourself now. I don't know if it's star 6 or star 3. I can never remember. Maybe star 3 to unmute yourself.
Christian, can you hear me? It's Mark.
Yeah.
Mark.
Hi. There's a couple of things. I don't know if you're. It was a long time ago, like 25, 30 years ago, even. Actually, I think it might have been even the Koch administration. They tried to tackle this issue. It was right around when those portable self-cleaning toilets came out in Paris. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but
Yeah, we've had long discussions about those.
yeah. So anyway, the whole thing got nixed because they weren't handicapped acceptable. So they couldn't have. So anyway, but it's not a perfect world, but so they couldn't have any bathrooms at all. So that's why we're dealing with this now. At least it could have been a start. But when you guys are doing your research, correct me if I'm wrong, but my memory, I don't know if it's a law or if it's an administrative law that restaurants cannot. I mean, you always see these signs, bathrooms to customers only, but that's apparently not allowed. Did you know if that's still in effect? Well,
The last thing we heard was that first of all, restaurants don't have to open their bathrooms. As far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, Mimi and Betty, but the restaurants do not have to open their bathrooms to the public.
That was
I
a
thought-
recent
There was a
debate.
proposal. There was a proposal to
Hey,
do it, and
Mark.
then the administration moved back away from it.
Right.
So But then they must have changed it from years ago, because a while back it used to be that that if you asked to use the bathroom in a public in a place that's open to the public, they had to let you use it when it was open. So,
They don't have to. I mean, it'd be nice if they did, but they don't have to, as far as we know, because, sorry.
Can we confirm that? See if that changed, Lucian, just to be
No,
sure.
it did change. It did change.
All right. I don't wonder when that changed. All right. That's all I had.
All right. Anybody else?
Oh, I had one last thought, Jill here.
That's Jill?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Do the hotels have to allow the public to use their bathrooms?
Well, when you say have to allow,
Or-
you're talking about in the lobby? In the lobby.
Yes. Yes.
So if you go in the lobby, I mean, I've gone in hotel lobbies and they've not stopped me. I've gone into their bathrooms.
Well,
So I think it,
no, the bigger question was, it's come in this conversation, I have heard, people say that there's bathrooms that are in effect, have are attended, such as, hotel lobbies. Are there
Mhm.
other non-public, because I know you address, the access to government buildings. What I'm wondering is, do you want to have another point in there that many of the bathrooms that could be made public are attended? Because the question of safety has come up a lot. It's going to come up no matter what, even though this reso doesn't deal with implementation, just the
right.
request.
And again, it's just not what this reso is about. This reso is just getting us started. And remember, it's a conjunction with CB5 and CB6. And so we all have basically very similar resos.
Yeah.
And we want to just get the conversation started. The borough president has already gotten it started, and we are not being very specific at the moment.
Right. No, I hear you. It's just a way to kind of get rid of those questions that kind of block the bigger discussion.
Oh, but you know what? Even if they were in here, I'm sure those questions would continue to come up.
Okay, that's fair enough. Fair enough.
So at the moment, we are just trying to get people continuing this conversation. This conversation has been going on since I was a little girl growing up in New York, and many of us. And so it's, continuing the conversation, getting more people involved, making more people aware of the issue. Because again, people just think it's for a specific group of people, and there are many groups of people who need public bathrooms.
Understood. Thank you.
So, yeah. Before, any other questions before we
I
vote on
have
this?
I just have one question, and obviously this might be for something for when you want to do things more specific. So let me know if it's not for now. Like
Yeah,
you know
why
how
don't you wait?
well, I want to ask to let you know what I want to ask, and then you could tell me if it needs to wait.
Okay.
But before the pandemic, Starbucks used to, let people go to the bathroom whether they were customers or not. So I'm thinking this might be for the next step after this, like maybe giving some type of incentives, whether it's a tax break or some type of incentive
We
to
talked about
businesses
that already.
to replicate
Yes, we
that.
talked about that.
Okay, that would be
And
for the next one, right?
Yeah, in our group, we discussed that already. And I think Starbucks, you can still go to the bathroom.
Right, but encouraging other businesses to do that, and then maybe giving some incentive. Okay,
Yep,
thank
we
you.
talked about it. Okay, thanks. Good ideas continue to circle among all of us. Yep. So great. All right. Any other questions? If not, we're going to vote on this. Do I see any other hands? Nope. Lucian, Mimi? Nope. Okay. Shall we vote? And can we do it the way we started doing it with CB1? If there is anyone is opposed or abstaining, please let us know. Okay. If no one's opposing or abstaining, then it passes.
Okay. I heard no one, so I'm assuming everyone's in favor. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Great work.
All right. Yes, Betty, again, thank you so much. So the next topic on our agenda is 2 months ago, we brought a reso to the full board about the state of our cobblestone streets in Tribeca. And as most of you know who attended that meeting, we had proposed that if we couldn't get some action with getting the streets repaired, that maybe we should pave them over. Well, that was a horrible thing for me to say, apparently, because we were met with a lot of objections. And last month, unfortunately, our meeting ran long, and so we had to move that this topic to tonight. And so we are going to start the discussion. Someone needs to mute themselves. Someone needs to mute themselves. No?
That was me. I'm sorry.
Oh, is that you?
Yeah, it was me. I know. To
So
my shame, it was me.
Okay. That's okay. We know that you're doing babysitting duty. You're doing double duty. So I don't know where to actually begin this conversation.
Pat,
It
can I,
seems, Lucian, you wanted, hold on, Mitch. Lucian, you wanted to tell us that Landmarks has said basically
Yeah,
that we have.
Landmarks has made it clear to me that while they say they have, I think it's the best way to put it is that they have jurisdiction, insofar as they are a barrier to any sort of changes to the street. So if the community board did wish to move to change the street surface type from cobblestone to asphalt, that would be something that the community board would need to engage with LPC, and it would not be a short process. So they are not responsible for the good repair maintenance of the roadway. So while you can appeal to them if a building that has historic protection is in disrepair and is being demolished by neglect, so to speak, you wouldn't be able to do really anything of the sort for the streets. That really you need to take it to DDC if it's a freshly reconstructed street, fresh meaning within 18 months of the culmination of the project, or to DOT for all other scenarios.
Okay, so that makes it clear that even if we wanted to, we really couldn't pave over these streets.
is
So
that from
now
the
we've got to
landmarks on
deal-
our committee or landmarks from the city?
No, Landmarks from the city.
Okay.
So now we've got to deal with the fact that it has been basically 10 years that these streets have been in disrepair and nothing has happened to fix them. We have one person who has died as a direct result of a fall taken on a cobblestone street. We have other people who have suffered injuries because they have fallen. And I want to ask Diane Lapson and Diane Stein, because they live in IPN and they live by one of the most notorious streets in disrepair, that if they would like to say a few words, please do. So,
All right, just give me one moment, and I'll, Diane, I'm gonna just run this. I'll make sure you're moved over, Diane.
Can I ask
You're now
Lucia in the meantime to clarify his last statement? While he's.
So my last statement?
Yeah, so does that technically mean that nobody is responsible for maintenance of these streets?
No. I said DOT is responsible for all of the scenarios. So if it's not freshly rebuilt, then it's DOT.
Is DOT still on with us?
yes.
Yeah. So Ed
Has
Pinkar's
DOT
joining us a
previously
little
said
late.
they're not responsible?
No, there was a confusing statement made by Landmarks
Landmarks.
Preservation Commission,
Okay,
which appeared that they were taking full responsibility, but they were narrowly exercising a jurisdiction over the surface
Changing of the
design
surface.
as it related to the historic district.
so it has to be maintained and repaired, but not by them, but they are the decision makers in terms of how and what it has to look like.
Well, not how, but that it has to be the same surface
Yeah.
that it is. We can't
Okay.
pave over, we can't, I had
Okay.
used the word asphalt, which was terrible, but
Okay.
we can't
But-
use any other kind
but
of surface
Pat-
material.
Okay,
Pat, did you mention, we came up the last time, and it seems that most of the people liked it when I came up with the idea of whatever the rules are for ADA accessibility, that of course, plan A is repairing it or fixing it the way it was to maintain landmark status, but that if it cannot be done to also, have access, ADA accessibility for, which the laws weren't there 100 years ago when the,
Okay, but Mitch.
Yeah.
Mitch, we just made it clear that we cannot change the surface of the road.
right, but
Unless-
that, so, but
unless-
our resolution could still be that the safety, the ADA accessibility, listen, there were laws and then they've been changed over the years because like there wasn't ADA accessibility 30, 40 years ago when they had other laws. So that, why can't we,
Granted.
why do we have to agree
Right.
with a law that maybe we don't think is just?
Well, then we need to work on changing the law, but at the moment, I mean, it's not even law, it's that it falls under the jurisdiction of landmarks, and right now, we cannot make a reso requesting to change the surface because we would have to get permission from landmarks. Now, if we want to go another route and get permission from landmarks, work on getting permission from landlords, but it's not just that, it's also that when we brought this resolution to the full board, we were met with a lot of opposition to it. So there are many members of both the public and the community board that are opposed to changing the surface. So at this point, now we got to talk, we got to talk about our options. So if we have to get it repaired, we need to get it repaired in a way that makes the street usable to as many people as possible.
Well, that's what we said. We said that plan A is to build it or repair it totally in form of the landmark's position, and then plan B, C, or D, however far down you want to go with it, is that if it can't be done maintaining safety for ADA requirements, then at that point there's for an exception to the rule and to try to have, I think there was an architect on one of the meetings here that said that there are materials and services that can maintain landmarks and also be safer.
And is Laura, first I want to get
Laura's joining.
Okay, so let's get Diane to speak first.
No,
Diane Lapson.
Oh, Diane Lapson, okay.
And then you can talk, Diane Stein.
Can I just ask some clarification though? Does that include the streets that don't have crosswalks, Lucian? What has landmark status?
Maybe perhaps I think we could turn to our friends from DDC, who I need to pull over here. When they rebuild cobblestone streets now, do they have like a separate smooth treatment for crosswalks? Is that part of the standard? Dushyant, are you able to answer that? And Frankie?
Yes, this is Dushyant. So for the crosswalk, we have a flame top granite that is like 2 feet by 3 feet wide, and those are smoother than what we have on the a little bit rough cobblestone surface. So those are the different type of the granite. Those are being used for the crosswalk.
The crosswalk it's not required that the crosswalk be the same material that the rest of the street is made out of.
Correct. Yes, but right now the West Street construction and Hudson Street, we have a crosswalk with the smooth flame top cobblestone. Those are the granite stones.
Dushyant, do you know if those crosswalks are ADA compliant or ADA accessible?
Yes. We maintain the at the corner when we construct the ramp. We try to satisfy as per field condition the ADA requirements for the ramp.
Okay, so that's good information to have. All right, so let's just go back. I wanted Diane Stein she actually brought this to the committee, actually 10 years ago probably, and then brought it to us again. So let's have
Diane Lapson.
I'm sorry, Diane Lapson. Diane Lapson. So let's have Diane say a few words. Hi, Diane.
Hey, hi. My concern, well, for those of you who weren't at the meetings where I brought this up, I first brought this up 2005, then 2000, I think, no, 2005 is when the stones were put in. 2016, we had a resolution from the other committee that Jeff was in charge of, the
Tribeca.
committee.
Mm.
And it was a very strong resolution that talked about all the cobblestone streets that were damaged down here, the ones that we knew about. The cobblestone streets are damaged also in Soho and in the West Village. It just keeps going. In any case, nothing had happened till for all those years, until my neighbor fell down and had a tragic accident on Harrison Street. Among the other people who have fallen down, not had tragic accidents, but were very hurt. So I brought all of this to the community board because, frankly, we had already been to the mayor's office. It is so amazingly frustrating that our taxpayer dollars are paying everyone's salary and nobody is listening to the fact that we are living in a very dangerous situation for many people, people who are handicapped, babies, people who have shopping carts, seniors who are with walkers, average young people who just are running with their phones in their hands and not looking, and people who park their cars and have to get out of their cars and cannot walk to the corner, have to get out of their cars in the middle of the street. So all of this has been going on without any communication, and this is my biggest concern now. I'm so gratified that the community board is now really helping and participating in this, because I can't do anything on my own, it seems, with this issue. But the communication is key. The last meeting we had at Quality of Life, we heard that some of the streets, and it even had a title of fixing cobblestones or something, some of the streets are already starting to be repaired without any discussion with us, even though we have brought this up to the Department of Transportation many times, and we discussed it in the community board. Nobody informed us that it was happening. And that's what scares me. Is it going to be the same thing again, that they're going to start disintegrating? Like, we could have actually had the job done free had we known it was only 18 months that we had before. You couldn't ask the original company to come back and redo it. The city has paid millions of dollars for a job that didn't even last 3 years before it started coming apart. And now that it's starting to be fixed, we have no idea, or I have no idea what that means, what it involves, where to get the information. How do we know this is not going to happen again? How do we protect the people who live here? And especially, Tribeca's considered, which I never use this as a reason why we should fix anything, really, because all people have the right to a quality of life. But Tribeca happens to be one of the highest real estate communities in New York City, and they have all broken streets. It's like almost embarrassing, you know. People have to eat, and if you're in a car, you will have a very dangerous ride for your car and for your passengers. So my biggest concern now is, who is in charge of fixing the streets, or who can we really talk to without each meeting we have, we're guessing, is it up to you guys, or did the Department of Transportation come to the meeting? I think they're here tonight. They didn't come before when they were invited. How could we finally get somebody who, you know, this is like, it has, I'm going to be quiet in a minute, but it reminds me of 9/11. After 9/11, no agency was entitled to tell us how we should clean up, where we should go for help. Everybody was saying it's Department of Sanitation, it's this, it's that. We need to know who's in charge of this. Who can we speak to? Who can we get reports from? And how can we tell all of the residents here who are concerned about this what's going on in our city, New York, who we're all very active in? That's basically what I am saying at this moment.
Thank you, Diane. That was well put, well stated, clear. Diane Stein, did you want to add something?
I think Diane Lapson said it all. I just wanted to also reiterate about that bicycles are almost being forced to ride on the sidewalk, which creates another, because they can't ride on the cobblestones, and that creates another additional hazard. But I think, yeah, it was pretty comprehensive.
Great.
I was also very disappointed with the full board meeting. It was very frustrating because it sounded like the board was so I felt like they were more upset because we used the word asphalt, and I thought that the focus of the resolution really was to get these streets repaired and repaired properly and in a long-lasting way, and everybody just sort of went crazy about
So we're going to reword.
pave
we're gonna
the
write it in
and
Reso.
and I just felt kind of like human quality of life for many different groups of people was less important than the whatever the character of the streets.
Right. I
Thanks,
just wanted to
Diane.
add one thing. The beginning of the resolution sounds a little shaky. Even the first, it's like two might this and perhaps that.
Right. Well, I
I don't
think
see it in front of me, but I know I can't speak on that after this. So
we're going to write it, write it over. So tonight we have Commissioner Pinkar is here, and I don't know if he's online. Lucian?
Yeah,
I am.
I'll
Good
need to check.
evening,
He's
everybody.
joining us, but he has some familial
Can you hear me?
duties to complete first. So I'm
Hello?
going to
Oh,
communicate
maybe
with
he's
him.
talking. I think he's talking.
Oh, maybe he is. Okay.
Lucian, can you hear
I
me?
won't stop him.
Yep, we
Hi,
can hear you now.
Ed.
Oh, yep. Hi. I'm just
Hi.
getting my twins down, so you might hear some chirping in the
Well, do you
background.
want to continue doing that, and we'll speak to a couple other people before you? Do you want to do that?
I have 2 minutes, so I'll stay on for the meeting. But just I've been listening in, and first of all, wanted to thank Lucian. No one has worked harder on this issue. Every time we talk, he reminds me about it, and we know how important it is to Community Board One and other community boards throughout the city. Manhattan's not the only street with historic cobble. Just a couple of things. So first of all, any cobblestone street is under DOT's jurisdiction. Anytime you see a defect, whether you think it was caused by wear and tear, by a utility company, by a faulty contract, please call 311, call my office, let us know, because we have a variety of units who work on this general issue, depending on the type of problem and defect that might be in the street. If we have to work with the Department of Design and Construction or with landmarks or other agencies, we will handle that coordination and keep the community board and the residents apprised of where we are. So one-stop shopping, come to DOT. And my littlest baby is talking. So then when we look at cobblestone streets in a couple of ways. First of all, any cobblestone street that is within a historic district must remain cobblestone or whatever the historic material may be. It's often very difficult to maintain those streets for a variety of reasons. It's not only the material today is different than it was many, many years ago, and the challenges of having all of our underground utilities underneath the streets, not only water and sewer, but communications and electricity. We are seeing a lot more wear and tear on those streets, and it's difficult to maintain them in good working order. What we try to do at DOT is if we see or learn about defects, and if it's an immediate safety hazard, we will cover up those defects with asphalt. That is always considered a temporary repair because we are obligated to eventually come back and restore that in line with the historic cobble or whatever material it may be. But public safety always takes precedence. We have a small in-house crew, basically the same masons who are working on concrete medians for our safety projects throughout the city, who are able to dedicate a couple of weeks every year towards trying to repair larger patches of cobble with DOT employees. It's a very small capacity, I'm afraid. And we do prioritize those locations where we've already installed the temporary asphalt over damaged cobble. And we prioritize defects that are within the travel lane for vehicles or bikes, or at the crosswalk for pedestrians. Meaning, if it's just a parking spot or a parking lane, that is a slightly lesser priority in our mind based off of our resources. We then, when we know that there are streets, and there are unfortunately too many of them, where it's beyond our internal capacity to make those repairs, we then, over time, develop capital projects and try to get funding to have those streets fully reconstructed. Just like we would with an asphalt street, we would coordinate through DDC with DEP to make sure that the upgrades are happening. And then DDC would take over that point and having their contractors actually build out the capitally reconstructed street with asphalt. And I know I have Dushyant and Frankie online to talk about DDC's role in that process. But that's the general situation with where we are with Cobble. Every year, I kind of get a small number of maybe one or two streets or block segments where we could try to make some repairs in actual Cobble. But if there's ever an immediate safety issue, we would go out there and move forward with the temporary asphalt fix.
Okay, Ed, so thank you for that information. So I'm gonna
before we lose Pinkar, Mr. Pinkar, may I ask him a few questions?
Well, hold on. I don't think
I'm
you
gonna
leaving us?
listen. I'm not gonna leave. If you
Okay.
don't hear from me, I'll still be on until the meeting, until this portion of the meeting.
Right. So first of all, have you been aware that we've been trying to get these streets repaired for 10 years?
Oh, absolutely. I used to work on Staten Island. We try to get some of those repaired too. And we have made repairs, and we could follow up with Lucian on some of the recent work that we've done. We know some of the challenges on Bond, on Crosby, on Harrison. And we do send out crews to try to target a specific area every year. It's not a full-blown block-long repair. That type of work requires a capital project, and that type of work requires, I mean, DDC would know the numbers better than me, but probably $10+ million per block for a full-scale reconstruction.
Okay, and have you heard before about this death that occurred because of a fall taken on Harrison Street?
I have certainly heard of the tragic incident. We all read about it, and we have identified Harrison as a block that we're going to try to do some more work on with our in-house force.
And do you have any kind of timeline for doing the work on Harrison Street?
Well, again, we're looking to target specific defects within it. And I can get you more details. I'll follow up with Lucian to show exactly the areas that we're looking at, not only on Harrison, but a couple other blocks. I don't want to oversell it though. We might be talking about areas that are 20 feet by 20 feet. This is not a full curb to curb restoration. That's beyond our in-house capacity.
Well, while you're going around, and I don't know that you're doing it personally, I would assume you're not, but while the crew is going out to identify the areas that they feel are the first priorities, is it possible for some of us community board members to accompany them?
Well, I do go out personally, and I'm happy to do a walkthrough with you or others of areas of the greatest concern. I'm happy for us to try to prioritize that together. Again, I'll be extremely transparent and tell you what we're able to do, and if it's not this year, maybe it's next year. But yes, happy to coordinate in that fashion.
Okay, because at this point, last year, someone from de Blasio's administration went out and did a walkthrough. I think Lucian was there, Diane Lapson was there, and as of yet, we've had no movement on the actual repair work. So it would be great if we could, and I probably can't do it for various reasons, but maybe I will be able to, if at least people who are most involved in this issue could go and do a walkthrough, and hopefully Lucian could join them, set up a time to do a walkthrough and have a discussion. And we love the fact that you say that you're going to be transparent about it, because it's been 10 years that, we have been trying to get some movement on this problem.
And Pat, I will go as far as to try to get some of the streets that we have repaired, or the portions of streets we had repaired, even when Luis Sanchez was borough commissioner, because we've done work. But
Right.
one intersection for an in-house DOT crew to repair all of it in cobble could take 2 weeks, and that's just one intersection.
Yeah.
The real long-term solution here, if it's going to be reconstructed in its totality, is a capital project. And the struggle we run up into there is just the money.
Right. Okay. Well, at this point, we would love to do the walkthrough, so let's try to get that actually happening. And do you mind now if you take questions from the members of the board, the committee? Well, Gerald's not on the committee, but it's fine. So Gerald, you actually asked first. Ed, is it okay if you take some questions?
Yeah, of course, absolutely.
Great, Gerald.
Thanks. Thanks, Pat. First off, I want to really thank DOT and DDC for being here for this very important topic. And also I want to thank Diane for her comments, and those in the community who have been here much longer than me and have been struggling with this issue. So I guess my first question regarding the capital projects and the budget issue. I mean, these temporary fixes, I've seen many of these temporary fixes along Harrison, Staple Street, et cetera, where I understand you put down the asphalt, it's supposed to be temporary, but it seems like the temporary fix becomes kind of permanent before it becomes a pothole and becomes just not fixed. So what is the timeline for a temporary fix to actually be fixed permanently? And then the other thing is, of course, the biggest issue is that when these streets were some of them recobbled 10 years ago, they were done incorrectly. There's an inch, sometimes more, between joints. And I'm very familiar with DOT's specifications for redoing cobblestone streets. It appears that there was no oversight. Of course, whoever the contractors are probably long gone by this point, and the statute of limitations is expired. But what can be done to ensure that as these streets are becoming recobbled, that they're done correctly? Who's overseeing that? And also, going back to my first question, where do we get this capital funding? How do we put this on the forefront for a capital project? Because it is a safety issue.
Jared, thanks for your questions. I think for capital projects, we have an annual budget for what we call reconstruction. So resurfacing, if it's a regular asphalt street, just tends to do the top layer curb to curb. Reconstruction of a street is the much larger capital project, and it's often coordinated with underlying water upgrades, sewer upgrades, utility relocations. The general rule of thumb is that an asphalt street could be reconstructed every 30 to 50 years. That obviously changes depending on the nature of a street. A core artery in Manhattan is going to take much more wear and tear than a residential street in Staten Island. And it also does depend on the underlying infrastructure, because sometimes the top layer of a street may be in generally better shape, but DEP needs to do sewer upgrades. So that's how the Department of Design and Construction coordinates between the two major infrastructure agencies, DOT and DEP. There is for the temporary asphalt repair. If we go out there and we either see, because we are inspecting, or learn about a complaint, I can have crews out with asphalt within hours, particularly when we see really bad defects, because we're always trying to maintain public safety. There is no specified timeline, though, to say how long that asphalt can be turned into a more permanent cobble repair. One of it may be that I have a running list of locations of top priority, and it might take a couple of years before we get to the top 10 locations on that list, because it does take so much work for our in-house resources to be able to make these repairs. And then there's not necessarily a specific timeline to create that capital project and to get the funding. I think the best thing we all can do is really, again, have that communication where, and even if we're going around to different blocks together, say, okay, you know what, this year, green is our top priority, and next year it's going to be bond, and the year after for in-house repairs, it's we're going to do this. I'm very happy to take that feedback from the community board, from our elected officials and others as to what we think the top priorities are, understanding there could be disagreement in that. But that's an important part of the communication. And then the capital project, we do meet with the community boards every year through borough budget consultations. I think if we can get behind a couple of streets with elected official support, we might be able to see some movement on that front. But that's a much longer process, as you might know, just to be able to design, bid, and then ultimately construct the reconstructed street.
And so in North Tribeca, with the intersections at Vestry and Greenwich, and I believe perhaps Late and Greenwich, and then maybe even DeBrosses in Greenwich, how did they become such a priority suddenly? I mean, they're beautiful intersections now. They've been redone. I think they are ADA accessible. What was the catalyst for those becoming such important intersections?
I can't speak to those specific. I think those were part of capital projects that my predecessor, worked on mostly. But it's over time. The city, again, DOT in conjunction with DEP and DDC, are identifying where we are looking to improve the underground infrastructure, the water system, the top layers infrastructure as well.
Okay, so it's definitely a coordination issue. I understand that. My last question is, you had mentioned about contacting your office. What, in addition to 311, what is the best contact for your office?
You can always call our main line, which is 212-839-6210. And if you email Lucian, he'll be happy to share Jen Leung's email address. She covers community boards 1, 2, and 3 for my office. And then I'm easy. You can find me on the DOT website. And my email is first initial last name, so EPINCAR @dot.nyc.gov. But the quickest way is just to confirm to Lucian, because he hunts me down every week.
Yeah. All right, Gerald, I've got 6 hands up, so I'm going to.
Yep. Thank you, Pat.
If we have time, we'll come back.
Pat, I do want to say, last thing is that, Mitch had mentioned earlier, and I think actually Diane Stein had mentioned, at the main meeting, I am in favor of repairing the streets. As it's been said, LPC is not responsible for the repairs, but it seems that LPC would have some pull and some weight for prioritizing these. So maybe that can be part of the resolution too, is to get LPC on board with the community board and to help set some priorities for getting these things taken care of. Thanks.
Yeah, I hope you can stick around while we're going to work through this reso. Okay, so Betty and then Detta. Oh, you're on mute, Betty.
Hi, Commissioner. I just want to get things for a little bit of clarification. With the problems with the cobblestone, one of the problems are the pedestrians as well as the bikers and other micro transportation. Can the bike lane and or the crosswalk be done on a block outside of a capital project or only within it?
Betty, it's a great question. First of all, nice to see you. It tends to happen with a capital project because you have to obtain the smoother granite material, which are very expensive. We had a project on 14th Street that we coordinated on with DDC, 14th and Washington, and we had to get the material shipped over from Italy. It was 2 years delayed. It was, very challenging, but that tends to be beyond our in-house capacity.
Okay, well, thank you. That's the question.
That's it, Betty?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Detta?
Hi, yeah, I guess my question really is similar to Betty's. Just what is the process to request a granite strip or even just an asphalt strip on a cobblestone street, like some sort of bike strip?
So we wouldn't install an asphalt bike strip on a historic cobblestone street. We're not allowed to. We are allowed for areas that are defects to temporarily make that asphalt repair. But I think the permanent way to achieve a smoother surface for the bike lane or at the crosswalk is inclusion in the capital project. So the one that comes to mind, Varick Street, south of Canal, you have a granite slab for the bike lane, and it's a much easier ride than having to navigate cobble on a bike. I completely understand.
Well, yeah, it's just not possible on a bike. So as others were saying, bikes go on the sidewalk, and then that's creating conflict. But I'm hearing you that really that change can only be made when there's a capital project and the whole street's being redone.
Yeah, I'm going to confirm that point with my folks, but that's my understanding.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mariama, Laura, Elizabeth?
Thanks, Pat. So my question, and it was touched on by the commissioner as he was speaking, just growing up across this, a block away from the seaport, and my dad worked at 20 Exchange Place. I've been walking on these cobblestones since I was very, very little. And my mother pushed strollers on them and things, and I walked on heels in them. So just trying to be fair and think of the people that wanted to preserve it, it occurred to me that they used to not always be in disrepair, that we must have been using some sort of different material whereas they lasted, 50 years, 100 years, up until maybe, 2 decades ago or a decade ago, and people started getting hurt finally. So that's what I was thinking and wanting to ask about. And then the commissioner did say we used different materials back then. Why are we using less standard materials than were used in the 1800s? And why can't we use the old material again?
I'm going to see if
Great.
we have the
Listen,
engineers
I
from
was just going to
DDC.
say.
Yeah, we have the engineers from DDC here. They can talk a little bit more, I think, about the materiality, since they're the ones who dive a little bit deeper than Ed on the design. Frankie and Dushan?
But before they do, Lucian, one other point is the activity on our streets today is completely different than the activity and the types of vehicles that existed 100 years ago. The truck deliveries, the weight of those vehicles, the volume of those vehicles really leads to significant wear and tear on the material. And I mean, I don't know about you, but during the pandemic, I certainly got my share of Amazon deliveries. And that certainly plays into this issue of the deterioration that we're seeing on some of the streets, and particularly now residential streets as more and more residential deliveries happen. So I just asked you, I mean,
That's
if
very,
DEC
very
could
fair.
talk about,
That's very, very fair.
I-
Point well taken.
just
But I lived here in the
keep that in mind.
70s, 80s, 90s, and we just didn't have these problems. So I was still with them. I'm sure that's a huge part of it. But I just have trouble believing or disbelieving that it's not something having to do with the material as well, because we just didn't have this before. I mean,
Mary, we had a
bikes.
meeting yesterday between DDC and DOT, and one thing that I brought up was the weight of vehicles that go over the streets and the cobblestones. You know, they are simply stones that are mortared in, and so I know that the vehicular weights that are going over these streets now in modern times is far greater than whatever went over cobblestone streets in the historic days when they were, you know, used as a primary surfacing for streets. You know, like carts, a fully loaded wooden cart with wooden wheels and some horses doesn't come nearly as heavy as some of the box trucks and other weighty vehicles that go over them now. And I think that, especially the roads that are coming off the highway, you're seeing a lot more you're seeing a lot more traffic and heavier trucks, and I think that definitely degrades stop it and degrades the streets quick.
The amount of trucks and cars. Did we
Yeah.
lose?
Can I
Right,
speak?
so we were going to talk to, we're going to talk to Dushyant, and who else is here? Was it Frankie?
Can,
Yeah.
Pat, can I address some of these issues? It's Laura.
Who's speaking? Hi, Laura. Do you want to wait and hear what GDC has to say?
No, actually, I don't, because there's a lot of
Okay.
misinformation going on. And if this, like New York City can't just say, oh, there's heavier trucks, the streets can't handle it. I mean, the engineers can there should be a concrete foundation under the cobbles with reinforcing bar that can handle the weight of whatever vehicle is going on our streets. And that's DOT's job and the city's job to do that. This condition, these cobbles are not installed properly. It's extremely dangerous. I'm not sure if the commissioner has gone to this intersection and seen it, but it should be an emergency repair or capital project or whatever needs to happen. But it's unacceptable what is there. And it's like, as a landscape architect, if I were supervising, if I were coming out and observing the construction of something like that and saw how those were installed, I would say it's completely unacceptable and they had to start over. And that's what the city should have done. And now they should correct the fact that they didn't properly supervise this installation. And the reason we're spending so much time on this is that there was not quality control. You know, we have engineering solutions to this. There are examples all over the city of properly placed intersections in historic districts with smooth cobbles that didn't have to come from Italy, that were gotten on time. I mean, I'm working on a project right now for state parks where they got the exact cobbles that we need to put here, like instantly. Okay, so I feel like there's a lot of excuses going on here for something that is not rocket science. It's like the street needs to be taken apart. It needs a good concrete base with reinforcing bars, and then it needs the proper cobbles that are smooth for wheelchairs and wheels to be put down, whether that's a capital project, a repair, or an emergency project, which in my mind, if I were the commissioner, I would call this an emergency project. It just should happen already. That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Laura. Ed, do you want to respond to that?
Sorry, I just want to say it's Elizabeth. I was sort of in the line to speak. Laura said everything that I was going to say, and I just want to say that I completely support 100% what she said. There's just excuse after excuse after excuse, and that's unacceptable. We're talking about a serious situation. People have died, people have gotten injured, and all I've heard, I'm sorry, Commissioner, but all I've heard was, like I said, excuse after excuse, and it's just not okay. You need to do better.
That's it. Exactly. I mean, I just,
Okay,
Commissioner,
ladies,
you
you
got
want to wait?
this intersection?
Do you want to have Ed respond to you?
Sure.
Now, hold on, Ed, would you like to respond to Elizabeth and Laura? Ed, are you there? Is that your response, Ed?
I think that's the response.
Convenient.
Okay.
My old boss used to say no response means no.
I mean, Laura hit the nail on the head, Pat.
All right, Mitch,
Well,
hold on. All right, there are people still in line. I would like to hear what Dushyant and Frankie have to say about cobblestones and laying of cobblestones. Can you unmute yourselves?
This is Dushyant. Frankie, you want to go ahead?
Yeah. So Pat, going back to what was said, you know, the project that was done that laid the cobblestones, the concrete base wasn't. That's a new concrete base. You know, I don't think it's a failure of the concrete base. I think it's a failure of, you know, a lot of different things. Like Commissioner Pincott said, there's, you know, the truckloads we have to take into account, and then you have to take into account the utility cuts, well, the private cuts that's been done on that road, and the restorations done by others. You know, that plays a big part in the failure of the cobblestone, right? If it was a failure of the concrete base that the cobblestones are working on, we would have a big whole issue that the whole road would be collapsing, and we don't have that issue.
Excuse me, Frankie, for interrupting. The job of DDC is to coordinate all these repairs and the surgical stuff that happens in the street.
Laura,
That's why DDC was
Laura,
created.
Laura, hold on.
Just
Okay,
to give again, and I think we gave you we gave at the last CB1 meeting, you know, so we put these, we are pretty much the construction part of the city, right? We get these contracts bid out, funded by different agencies. We build and we manage the construction, and then at that point we relinquish the responsibility back to the agency involved, right? We don't maintain the roads, so to speak, right? We build it, but we don't maintain it after the fact, right? We don't issue we don't issue permits to utilities. You know, we have no say in who does work there. So I think we need to be clear about that issue right off the bat. You know, there's different agencies, different entities that has a say in who does work. Unfortunately, DDC doesn't. You know, so we're contracted. We put together. We get the contract that's been designed. We build it to specifications. It's not a failure on a concrete road base. You know, and then what happens after the fact? You know, you're talking about 10 years after the road was constructed, and there could have been tons of other people that have done work on that road in that time.
So, Frankie, okay, so first we know that the initial company that laid the cobblestones, it seems as though they didn't lay them in a way that they would last forever, as you know, we would like them to have. That's number one, and that's all bygones. We can't do anything about that company. I hope that company is no longer being used to lay any cobblestones anyplace else in the city. So, you know, Commissioner Pinkar has said that you could come out on an emergency basis and put asphalt down to at least prevent any further injuries. So I would like to know from the commissioner, from DDC, you know, first of all, we'd like to arrange a walkthrough so that we can all discuss which streets are the problems and find out exactly when you can come out and at least repair those streets that are in the worst condition. That's number one. I don't know what else to say. Diane Lapson, you wanted to say something else?
Yeah, I'm starting to feel like I didn't want to replace the streets, and now all of a sudden I'm losing hope here. I feel like, you know, why are these problems? Why is the cobblestone problems, which directly affects people with handicaps and people who are blind and other people that are safety challenged because of this, why are other problems more important than this? When did this take lower priority? Because it's too difficult? What we're being told is We can't change the cobblestones. We can't get rid of them because they're landmarks. I love landmarks, but I love people's lives more than landmarks. And for me to hear, oh, once in a while we throw some tar on it, but we can't get to every problem. Maybe next year we could deal with it. All of Harrison Street is messed up. All of Harrison, not just a few little spots. And I have lived there since 1975. Every single day I have seen what happens on the street. So for me to hear, well, once in a while we put tar on it, and that it is completely unacceptable. That is not real. Nobody is putting anything, maybe little tiny pieces of tar. Yes, Con Edison used to come and throw the stones upside down because they were so mad that there were stones there. But there has to be a solution, because the people of New York are more important than looking like we have, horse and buggies coming down the road. I really think that this problem must be addressed. And if it can't be addressed this way, we have to find out who is the person that makes that decision. I just heard that it's not anyone here. Well, somebody's got to decide whether people are more important, especially the people who voted those people in, or are the stones more important? And my feeling right now is I feel very discouraged and very deflated, as if this is exactly what happened since 2010 when I brought it up in the first place, and here we are back again. We can't fix it. It takes money. But then every certain amount of years, we'll spend millions of dollars to fix it. Why? Why do this over and over again? This is like, insanity.
Right. Diane, point well taken.
I'm sorry.
I've got lots of no, it's fine.
I'm
I've
really
got lots of
swept
hands
away.
up. That's okay. You're allowed. I have lots of hands up. Bob Schneck hasn't spoken before. Lucian, I think your hand is up. Do you need to say something before Bob?
Yeah, just one clarification, one point of information. The money aspect, the capital project, we've been requesting that our council members and mayor come to an agreement to create a capital item for these streets. This has been our district statement of needs. It's our capital funding list, priority list, and that is how we communicate what money should be spent for our district, and it is extremely high in the list. And so, this is something where everyone should put pressure on your elected officials on the city level to deliver the capital funds for this project. That is how DOT will get the money and then go into some sort of agreement with DDC to rebuild them to the better specs and allow us to exert our oversight after it's all done. So that's one piece, Diane. And the other one is that the point about the vehicular loads was the point that I was making, not the point that DOT was making earlier. So just want to clarify that.
That's what I'm trying to do.
Thanks, Lucian. All right, Bob, you haven't spoken.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm on the way back from the hospital, walking on the street, so I apologize for that, but it's the best I can do. And so what I wanted to talk about real briefly is what I'll call the executive emergency response function. And that is, when you're in charge of something and something goes terribly wrong, you have to be able to make adjustments suddenly and kind of change direction. And all of these things, changing direction doesn't mean waiting for 15 years to get a job done. It means seeing that something is dangerous and responding. If someone gets killed because of a cobblestone street, God save us, then that's pretty close to what I'd consider an emergency. Or the question to Mr. Pinker is, how bad does a disaster have to be involving one of our streets in order to qualify as an emergency that actually requires a relatively quick response, which means within a month or two? So that's my question.
Ed, can you respond to that?
Sure. And Bob, I think it goes back to how quickly we can achieve the safest result, which is very much more quickly. We can go out there to make areas safe in interim asphalt, and we do that. Again, I think I said earlier, within hours. The question of to whether you can reconstruct a cobblestone street in New York City within months, it's just not possible. And we do have to coordinate that type of infrastructure upgrade with, again, the sewer system, utilities, and everything else that lives under our streets. It's spaghetti underneath the top level. And that takes years, unfortunately, and millions or tens of millions of dollars. This mayor announced just last month close to $1 billion of investment for traffic safety purposes. That not only includes new pedestrian areas and bike lanes and bus lanes and plazas, but also a significant increase in capital budget dollars. So I'm hopeful that we are on the right track to be able to get more and more street reconstruction projects in the pipeline and then ultimately completed. But in the interim, what we're able to do is respond with our in-house forces through, again, first of all, that top level. If we need to make it safe, if the existing crosswalk isn't flat enough, we'll do it in asphalt. I'll coordinate with Community Board 1 and others on what our priorities are for then the in-house work, and then over time, working together and with our elected officials, try to develop the capital projects and secure the funds for the more permanent repairs.
With all apologies, I want to say that that's exactly, if you listen to the tape, it's exactly the response you gave before. What I'm saying is, if I'm not saying that one death was this instant, but it should be possible if someone dies in cobblestone because of the cobblestone, it should be possible in 24 hours to cover that space with whatever asphalt or safety creating procedure is necessary. It shouldn't happen again, period. If something is that dangerous, we shouldn't ever have to wait for years. Lots of times I see potholes in the road which are simply dangerous. And after dark, when I can't see, I could easily step into it and break a leg. So I really call up 311 to make sure that someone does something. So I want to see in this case that if something really is a hazard to the public, that there is someone who in the operation who can respond, and B, that there's some kind of sane engineering or practical response that can cover the thing up quick. So that's the end of my question. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. All right, Mitch hasn't spoken. There are lots of hands up. Mitch?
Yeah, I wanted to make two points. I think it was the person that you had that we had mentioned that the company or the organization that lays down the initial concrete and cobblestone, then they pass off the responsibility. They're not responsible to maintain it. To me, I find that an inherent problem. And maybe it's a problem with the way the government system is set up. But in my opinion, any company, I wrote some notes down, that does the initial work, just like in any contractor you would call for anything that you do privately, should be required to have some degree of responsibility of maintenance, at least in the beginning. To do the work, I mean, there's no other situation where you would have somebody do like a major work for you, whether it's privately or professionally.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second, Mitch?
Yes.
The company did have an 18-month warranty.
Well, that's
And
not okay.
unfortunately-
Then that's what the guy said, and I excuse me, I just don't remember the name of the.
What I said was we build the roads, but we don't maintain the roads after the fact. That's not what DDC does, right?
Okay,
The roads belong to City DOT.
I understand. So is there what that Pat says? Is there an 18-month like maintenance thing that you kind of are responsible for, or is that not
no,
true?
You're mixing apples and bananas.
Correct.
So there was a company that was given the contract
right.
to lay the cobblestones,
Right.
and they had an 18-month warranty. And after 18 months, unfortunately, the streets began to erode or disrepair became apparent. But and so it was past the warranty period. But that was a private contractor who laid the
Okay,
cobblestone.
okay, so then it kind of gets back to what Laura said, and I'll just make the analogy, maybe for those, remember about 20, 25 years ago when people, they started, the American cars were not being made as well, and everybody started buying Japanese cars, and then the American cars were forced to use better materials and have better maintenance and better everything. And like I said, if you've ever been to Japan, which has a similar population, I'll get back to what Lucian kind of said, about the increase in traffic and everything. You know, that's legitimate, but in Japan and some places that have similar populations as us, this doesn't happen to the same degree because there's a better maintenance and better materials used and more attention to detail. And so, those excuses don't really hold water when we see them being taken care of in other parts of the modern world.
Okay, thanks, Mitch. Do you have another question? Did you said two?
Oh, no, those were the two, the company and the
Okay,
Japan
2
thing.
points. Okay,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Mitch. Before we make a second round, is there anyone from the public that hasn't spoken, Lucian and Mimi?
You got a couple hands up. There's phone number 917-783. I can ask them to unmute themselves.
You hear me? It's Mark Emeruso.
Hey, Mark.
Mark.
Oh, okay. So just a few things. So do we have the resolution that we had last month? Is that being revised now and modified, or are we just going to come up with something organic new here?
Well, I'm not sure yet, so I can't answer it. I think it's probably going to be organic, but I'm not sure.
So as in, from what I'm understanding, is that asking for have them asphalt over or take the cobblestones and put asphalt on is now a moot point. That's not going to happen. So it shouldn't even, the word asphalt shouldn't even be in the resolution.
Let me clarify for you, Mark. So we had asked to asphalt over the entire street if we could not get the repairs done. We have now been told that we do not have the authority to ask for,
Right.
Landmarks told us that we don't have the authority to pave over. So now Commissioner Pinkar has said to us, if there is an area that is dangerous, that area would be asphalted over.
That's a temporary fix, not a permanent solution. Right. Okay. So if we use the word asphalt in the resolution, let's please be clear that it's for a temporary fix. Okay. So a couple few more things. So if memory serves me correct, and the commissioner can maybe remembers, the funding for the cobblestones came about in connection with the Harrison Street project to replace the sewers, and then they tied it in that way. So maybe that's a solution for another capital project to tack on these refurbishment of all of the streets that were done 10 years ago, and it's not necessarily a maintenance thing. Maintenance would not be relevant because the initial construction was flawed. It was probably flawed in the material, and even when they were putting the cobblestones in, I was talking to the guys and I said, there's a lot of concrete in between these cobblestones, and I would always point to Vestry Street, and this kind of puts down the idea of more traffic. If you look at Vestry Street between Greenwich and Hudson Street, that comes off the West Side Highway. It is an artery to the tunnel. That's almost 100 years old of cobblestones, and that's in pretty good shape. So it can be done correctly if it's done correctly. And so I think all the points that maybe most people made here are certainly valid. So my idea would be to request the temporary repairs where safety is needed, and then request it as an emergency capital funding to refurbish the cobblestones correctly, and that way we have cobblestone streets that will last for years.
Basically, that's what
I
we're
don't
going to
know
do.
what else we can. I don't know what else we can really request. We can go on and on about it, but you know, when there's a will, there's a way for funding. Believe me, this kind of circular logic that we've been getting back and forth. You just need the mayor to say, "Let's do it," and it'll get done.
Okay, I agree. And I don't want to drag this on too much longer. It's 7:45. Can we finish our discussion by 8 o'clock and start our reso? So that gives us approximately 14 minutes now. Is there anyone else from the public?
Did you take notes on those points I made for the resolution? You got them? All right, thanks.
No, but you'll be here for the resolution. So,
Okay.
is there anyone else with the public who hasn't spoken yet?
Yeah, we have one other number. Hi, 646-235. You could unmute yourself now. One more time.
Hello?
646-235. You can unmute yourself. Your hand is up.
What is it, star 3?
Star 3. All right, hand went down. All right, so.
Okay, so we're going to make one more round, and then we're going to do it in this order. Again, we'll do it Gerald, Mariama, Diane Stein, and then Diane Lapson, you get the last word, okay? That's it. So Gerald?
Thanks, Pat. So listening to all this and really kind of hearkening what Laura Starr was also saying, you know, I'm thinking of Harrison Street in particular. I've been down the street a million times. The joints are just too far apart. I don't know why that is. I'm not an engineer. I'm an architect by trade. But I can say that the it's not a materiality issue. Maybe like Frankie was saying, there is a new slab underneath of there. That's great. But it has to do with, I think Minch mentioned it in Japan, it has to do with an attention to detail. It is quality control. When they were installed, the joints were too far apart. When that happens, individual blocks move and shift, and then everything gets pushed further apart because it becomes liquid. The streets need to be redone. There's just no way around it. And I know we'll get into the resolution later, but you know, one other thing that comes to my mind is if truly there's an issue about heavier traffic on these particular streets. There are not many of these streets. There's quite a few across, I guess, across the boroughs, but it is possible to limit the weight of vehicles going down certain streets. I'm thinking back to when I lived in Washington, D.C. We had particularly a street with historic structures on either sides, and because the streets, what was underneath of the streets was not very solid. The streets were limited to the size and weight of vehicles traveling on those streets, because if otherwise the facades would shake and the individual houses would be collapsing. So, you know, maybe that's something we can look at in a reso. I don't know how the community would feel about it or others, but, you know, Harrison Street in particular has buses that go up and down. You know, maybe it just means taking them a street over. I don't know, but that might be one other possibility.
Let's just ask the commissioner if that is something that would be considered. Ed?
Again, we have a truck map that does delineate where trucks of certain sizes are able to go. Basically, the rules are you must use designated streets except as you're getting to your final destination. I know we have certainly regulations usually for turning radius reasons where we might say no trucks over a certain number of feet. I'm not familiar with any weight restrictions on local streets. We have those on bridges, of course. But you know, happy to talk more offline about the particular areas of concern and you know whether we can consider new regulations that we haven't in the past.
Great, thank you. Mariama?
And has there been has there ever been an analysis done of these cobblestone streets and specifically I'm thinking of Harrison Street and why the joints have, why these stone ballasts are shifting the way that they are?
I don't know that there's been a thorough engineering analysis. I think some of it is, and again, New York is unique. I know, for just example, our winters, I believe, are significantly more wet and more cold than, say, Tokyo. And that's where we experience the freeze-thaw cycle. Basically, the water seeps in through the joints. It freezes, it expands. That's true on cobblestone streets as it would be on asphalt streets or concrete streets. Not to make an excuse, it's just what we deal with here. But happy to talk with DDC a little bit more about the Harrison Street example and what lessons we can take away from that.
Sounds good. Yeah, unfortunately, New York is one of the very few states that doesn't have a statute of repose. Most states can be up to 10, 13 years even, and unfortunately we don't have that. So going back to the issue of statute of limitations, I think the warranty is probably expired on these. So
Oh, long time ago.
well,
Okay,
yeah,
thanks,
Just
Joe.
to
thanks.
clarify, if I may, Chair, just to clarify, so anybody who takes out a permit to work within DOT's right of way, whether it's an asphalt street, a cobblestone street, a sidewalk, it's a requirement of the rules of the city of New York and DOT's rules that they guarantee those cuts for 18 months. If a street is newly reconstructed, whether in asphalt or cobblestone, the requirements are greater. We're dealing with that on 14th Street, which was recently reconstructed by DDC. As we have plumbers coming in looking to create new connections for new buildings or restaurants, we do hold them to a higher standard for a period of time. So again, for particular streets that you have concerns about, we can talk through when it was last reconstructed. Is it in the next 5 years of the capital plan? Where are we? That's just a matter of getting the information from you and working with my colleagues and getting it back to you.
And do you know where Harrison Street is in that? Because there's been 3 people
I-
at least here tonight who have asked about Harrison Street in particular.
Gerald, you
So
know what?
we,
Let's try
Harrison
to
Street is
I'm sorry.
past the warranty. It was reconstructed, I think, about 10 years ago. DOT is looking to do some of our own in-house repairs, but I don't believe it's on the current plan for additional capital reconstruction.
So as
I
we
can
do our
check on that.
walkthrough, we can also talk about those things, but we have another like 8 minutes and I've got 3 hands. So Mariama?
Well, I guess Cheryl touched on it a little bit. He was saying that he didn't feel that as an architect that it's the problem with the materials and just the way that they were put in. But I didn't really get an answer as to why we weren't using the same materials that we had in the past. The answers that I did get pretty much went to the use of the streets now, which I agree is important. But I was just wondering again why we are not using materials that, as Mark pointed out, have lasted 100 years in areas like by the tunnel. And then also, I was just wondering if maybe we could ask, I don't know if it would be in this resolution or through some other mechanism, maybe Lucian can answer this part, for that the DOT maybe, yeah, I think it'd probably be DOT, could support like a panel, a community advisory council or board that for cobblestone specifically, so that there are people who care about the issue and invested in it, paying closer attention to the needs, in a given neighborhood, but I mean, of course, particularly ours, wherever they're located, so that we don't have to wait a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years for somebody to pay attention to a street that has a hole in it. And those are my 2 questions.
So the first one was, why don't we use the same materials that we used 100 years ago?
Right, that doesn't seem to be in disrepair in areas like
Now,
Merrick Street.
Dushan has
SC
his
Street.
hand up. Dushan, do you have an answer to that?
Yes, I am working on my first project, that is West Street between Hudson Street and Varick Street. We use most of the stones; those were there. we most of the, like, more than maybe we are about to finish the project. I don't have the exact number, but maybe around 90% or so. The old
They're
stones
recycling.
were clean and being used. And I would say
Right.
this is the stones are being installed on a 9-inch concrete base. So the concrete base has no issue. Uh, the weakest point in the granite of the cobblestone is the joint, because the cobblestone is about 9 inch to 4 to 5 inch wide, and all periphery is a joint. Now, any vehicle or anything moves on top of that, the tires are also not on the one stone. Those maybe in one or two stones. Now, after we complete the project, many emergency work, say cone addition, ECS, time warner, it means cable work, or any water main, sewer, any house connection, new building construction, any emergency work being done, is the DOT is issuing the permit. And then the restoration depends on the contractor who is going to work over there. We are curing the cobblestone for 2 weeks, minimum 2 weeks. So we don't know how the maintenance after the construction is being done. So is altogether with the joint, the water, if the one joint has failed, then the water goes inside and freezing and thawing cycle, that joint will be bad. And from that joint, the water will go again to the next joint. And it's like a
Right.
rippling effect. So that I would say, but I don't see any issue with the material over here.
Dushan, is that common practice to recycle the stones? So when you go and you repair, if you have to, Con Ed or someone has to dig a hole and the stones are removed, are those stones then cleaned and put back again?
Well, Pat,
I don't know
it's
because
they put those in our contract, right? So, for example, Dushan's contract and also my Front Street contract, they'll put it as to reuse the stones. There's a certain percentage that we have to reuse. LPC wants that. They don't like the look of that new stone, so we do take that and we do to clean it. In terms of, I don't think we could speak for how the other, like the utilities or the private plumber does their restoration, because we don't know what they do, right? I'm sure they take the same stones. I'm not sure if they clean them.
So Frankie, you just brought up something that I didn't understand. So if Con Ed comes in and they have to dig a hole in the street and they remove the stones, they are responsible for putting the stones back?
They do the
Or
restoration.
do-
They do the restoration, right? And think, as like what Commissioner Pinkar was saying, any entity that takes a permit is responsible for the restoration. Be it asphalt,
So
cobblestone, anything, right? Sidewalks.
so like everybody's got a hand in this. There's
Correct.
not one entity that's laying.
So there's a
Okay,
lot
so
of
that
moving
makes it a little
parts to
clearer.
all of this. It could have been any of many factors, right? We don't know. We're not there. Like Dushan was saying, it's the freeze thaw cycle. It's the outside influences that does the work when
Okay,
nobody's
but
around.
my main issue is that any and everybody can relay stones. It is not just one agency.
Correct. So the
responsible to
utility
come
does their
back.
own work. That's not
Right.
ABC cobblestone
So
guy that they go to
obviously
that everybody uses.
And
right.
then the
So
senior
obviously
contract,
not everyone is as expert at relaying
Correct.
the stones as say DDC is.
Correct. So
So
that's
that's the
where
problem.
you could get a lot of the failures as well, when you have somebody that's not, that doesn't they're not a mason, right? They just have a general contract to do the work, that it's not a mason.
Well,
A
that's a
mason would know
problem.
more what to do, but then you have just a regular contractor with a plumber coming in and doing his restoration after a water cut. Then that's where it could become an issue.
Right. I'm sorry. Okay, so Mariana, did you have another question?
Pat,
The other thing was that
if I can.
Go ahead, Lucian.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry. I have a piece of relevant information. So again, I had a meeting yesterday with DOT and DDC, and I ran them through a lot of questions that I thought that they would have received, so they could just share notes and make sure that everyone was ready to provide as much information as possible to the committee meeting, which you all are asking good questions and ones that I didn't even think of. So, well, one thing that I did learn from this, and I think this is important bit of information to share, is that it's incredibly important that that when private contractors do make cuts in the street, whether it's to connect new buildings to water or to do any other sort of fixes, utility fixes, laying, telecom lines, what have you. Those are usually, they're expected to be permitted by DOT. Sometimes they do come and do emergency work, but they always get the permit afterwards. So there is a record of who opens the street.
Mhm.
I think one thing where we could, as a community board and a community, be more proactive is when we see someone doing work in a cobblestone street, just to make a note that when they do put the stones back, to take a peek, and if it looks like they didn't do the work correctly, then to let the community board know, and we'll let DOT know. That way they can make sure that the ones who did not rebuild the street the correct way are held accountable. Now, DOT is supposed to inspect. We just know that in the reality of things, maybe one day the inspector doesn't get dispatched. Who knows? But I want to make sure that we have an extra layer of vigilance, because I think that we have a lot of motivated members who are going to be looking at their cobblestone streets, and we hopefully can prevent some of this poor work from being done, and help nudge DOT and keeping them accountable, these private contractors. Now, there is also contractors who don't do the work legally. They come in to make a cut. They don't have a permit. It's hard to catch them when they do that, unless someone takes a picture of the van and the DOT number on the side of the van. That's usually how I identify them, especially if it's like a big work van that doesn't have the name of the company on it. But they do usually have a DOT number on the side. It's just important when you see work being done to take note of it, because that is our main way of I think narrowing down the amount of damage that private contracting work takes on our cobblestone streets.
And are they fine, Lucian?
That's a good question. I think they are summoned if they're not done, if it's not done correctly. But Ed can clarify that.
Yeah.
Okay,
the
so
f-
how
the
much
first thing we would do
longer?
is make them redo the work. And then
Okay.
if they don't do it up to our standards, or if they don't do it within the allotted time, but we absolutely fine them. And then if they're continually delinquent, we'll threaten to pull their permit citywide, which usually gets them to come into compliance pretty quickly. But just to
Ed,
echo on Lucian's point, even when a DOT inspector will go out, and we will always look to inspect completed work, but we might be there for 4 days to 6 weeks afterwards. It's really important for you in the community, a year after that work is done, if you're seeing it, just call it in to 311 or our office. This doesn't look like it's holding up. Because then we can go out there, and within those original 18 months, have the contractor of record go back and make repairs if it's not up to code.
okay, but Ed, I know you were not commissioner, so we can't hold you responsible. But Harrison Street, it was called in. Unfortunately, it was called in. The disrepair occurred after the 18 months, but it was called in by the community. So, all right, we'll have to do some more work on that.
One other piece, I just want everyone to know, Dushyant or Frankie, how long does it take for the mortar to cure when done properly on these cobblestone streets?
Generally, we cure for the 2 weeks, and also we take the samples of the mortar and get it tested in the laboratory to get the 7-day and 28-day strength. And on West Street, all the tests we have on the record, and it is satisfy the requirement.
Yeah. So this is
I'm
not
sorry.
something
Can I
like
jump in for 1
asphalt.
minute, Lucian? Lucian, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
sorry.
Mimi or you, can you please move Mark Amoruso over? Mimi, if you can do it. I'm sorry.
One
Lucian.
sec. You've got the 917 number, right?
Yeah, that's probably Mark.
Got it. Making him a
Thank you.
panelist.
Thank you.
So,
Hey, Mark.
so I only say that because I always want to make sure everyone knows, this is critical that the mortar cures correctly, because that's what prevents everything from breaking down, the stone shifting. But 2 to 3 weeks is an enormous amount of time, and I just don't think that most contractors are going to be taking that time and roping that part of the street off for that necessary amount of time. So, I think that it's really important that if you see that someone open the street, it's on us to a degree to make sure that you see them keeping no one from touching that area for 2 weeks. Otherwise, that will be the weakest point in the entire cobblestone roadbed, and this is kind of, it goes back to why these are so difficult to maintain. Asphalt, you pour the asphalt cures or cools, okay,
Right.
but this is a much different thing, and so it's a real takes a village kind of situation here, because that's just a long time.
Okay, yeah,
Goes
thanks.
to the other
It's
question that I asked, which was, do we have an option of maybe asking the mayor's office, DOT, somebody, if they would create and support like a community advisory council or board or some kind of panel, some kind of group of people who are willing to pay closer attention to this and to see things that happen in 2 weeks, in a year, before the 18 months or whatever, and make sure that it gets, that they seek help
I
then.
think, are you asking for additional DOT employees to go out and inspect repair work?
No, people who are advocating for repair, that are invested in this issue, that care about it, from the communities, to be supported in, like a panel, like an advisor, community advisory
No,
board.
I guess the only reason I'm asking you to clarify is because suppose I'm on that panel and I don't live on a street where or are you saying you'd be on the panel and then you'd be made aware of streets that have had cobblestone repair work, and then it's your obligation as a member of the panel to go out and look at the street? Is that
Oh,
what
they should
you're
definitely
saying?
be in your neighborhood. Yeah, you shouldn't be on a panel for the Bronx or whatever. That's
No,
not
no,
ideal.
I mean,
Yeah.
but like I don't live in an area where we have cobblestone streets, is what I'm
So
saying.
then you wouldn't where you wouldn't seek to be on the community. I'm talking about people that are invested in it, that are
Okay, so
people like Diane, that have been working on it for 10 years and still trying to get a resolution. Let her have somebody that she can, not 311, somebody that she can really call and say, listen, I saw this street, they just repaired it, something's happening again, get somebody down here. And there can be more on top of it.
I mean, I don't know, Miriam, I don't know, but Ed is just saying, and Lucian is saying, though, if you live on the street and there's work going on, that you could
I called
just
311 and told them that there were garbage bags on the on-ramp of the FDR Drive, or exit ramp of the Brooklyn Bridge. And they told me they would send somebody out in 2 weeks. I said, I hope your family member's not in that bag. And I was, being serious. This is 311, but that's all I'm going to say about that. Thank you.
I mean, we know, unfortunately, with 311. Well, I don't know. Let's think about that, Miriam. We'll talk some more about it.
Pat,
So it is now 8:07.
Okay.
And Diane Stein was supposed to talk, and then Diane Lapson was going to be the last person.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just had a question. I think Mitch touched on it earlier, and he mentioned Japan, but are there any places either in this country or in the world, Europe, Asia, where they have cobblestones that have lasted, including in modern times? And if so, can we emulate or find out what they're doing right and emulate them?
All over Europe, Belgium.
Yeah. Part of it is
Everywhere.
attention to detail, the way the people
Mitch,
take pride.
Mitch,
What?
let Ed answer, please.
I'm sorry, Ed.
I'm sorry.
Ed, did you want to say
I
anything to that?
I wasn't trying. I haven't been lucky enough to go to Belgium yet. But yeah, yes, there are examples, and I think it's a fair question to go back to my colleagues and see what research we've done for other cities, and then especially those cities that have underground infrastructure like we have. I mean, London is certainly comparative, particularly with maybe not as much snow as we get over the winters, but definitely the wet weather. So we can see. I'm happy to suggest to the commissioner that you guys would like me to go to London to inspect how they do their cobblestones. I think it's a great idea.
Tell you what, Philly's a lot closer, and so is Boston. You can check out Acorn Street and Alfres Alley.
Well, I mean, to be quite honest, we have some streets here that have lasted for a couple of 100 years, so we don't
That's
even
right.
have to leave the city, you
Yeah,
know?
that's true.
Diane Stein, does that kind of answer your question for you?
That was it.
Okay, so then, Mitch, do you have something really fast? Because really, Diane Lapson's supposed to be the last person.
You want to let her go first, and then I should
No,
be
no,
quick?
she's got to be last, and so
Okay,
you
there was two quick things. One of the things, the analogy I wanted to make, we dealt with this in the Quality of Life Committee dealing with 311, where there was multiple agencies and they were all passing the buck. And no disrespect to Frankie's agency, I'm sure they do a great job, but it just seems there's 3 or 4 different agencies are like over 10 years dealing with this stuff, and they have a system where they can pass the buck, so you don't know who's at fault. It seems that whether it's somebody like whether the wonderful Ed Pinkar and his agency, or somebody could be like an ombudsman, where it's like, you know, like that has almost like mayoral control of the school, where they can't pass the buck. And that's one thing that I would be in favor of. The second thing is, and I think I had brought this up to you a long time ago, I'm not sure if it qualifies now, there are some other places, especially in Asia, where they've actually taken like the plastic waste that where everybody's trying to get rid of, and they've infused about 10 or 20% of that into the cement, and they've paved rural roads. And because the plastic takes thousands and millions of years to to degrade, it's the roads have lasted like 1,000% longer, and they've also absorbed the water. And these are things that are happening today. It's just a matter of attention to detail and being willing to do it. It's not a secret.
okay. Thanks, Mitch. All right, so Diane, it's yours. Ms. Lapson.
I forgot most of what I was going to say, but I did want to say the bus, moving the bus from Harrison is really a difficult thing because we have a lot of seniors here who have a hard time getting to the bus when they tried to move it once before. So I'm on Harrison Street. The thing about Harrison Street is we are open to the river, so maybe if you're wondering why maybe there's more movement on Harrison, maybe it has to do with the river and the salt water. But my last statement is that I'm thinking that when someone from the mayor's office went on the walk with, it was actually Lucian and it was Cora from
Jennifer
Mark
Leon from
Lucian's
DOT went
office.
with us.
When they went on that walk, they were told that we were told in an email afterward that they think the mayor's office thought it was also sinkholes. And if that is the problem on Harrison Street, it is which means that problem might be on a lot of other streets because it's the same physical looking condition where stones are sinking in, then we have even bigger problems than just cobblestones. So that's why an analysis really should be done, a real serious one. Because if we have sinkholes in Lower Manhattan, we have big problems, big problems. So I'm hoping that something can be established where we could really get to the bottom of this and find out once and for all what's causing this situation. And Mariama, one day I'll tell you over a drink what kind of stones they used first. That lasted 200 years.
All right, so
Thanks.
very, very good discussion. Ed, thank you. Deshaun, thank you. Frankie, thank you. We're gonna write a reso. The next thing though is for Lucian, maybe you and Ed can, as Ed has said, you talk often, figure out a time when we can do this walkthrough, and anyone who wants to join from the committee or not can join the walkthrough. Is that doable?
Yeah, I'll coordinate with Ed in
Okay,
the borough
great.
office.
So if we can, I mean, the weather's nice now. If we can do it sometime soon, that would be great. since it's been 10 years we've been having this issue. If we could do it in the next week or two, Ed, does that seem possible?
Certainly in June. I'm just about to go out of the office for a little bit, but
Okay,
I'll
so
be
we
back
are
and coordinate with Lucian in a walkthrough in June.
hard to believe, but it is now May 18th, so June is right around the corner. That's like 2 weeks away. So, okay, if we can do it in June, let's make it a definite and let's get a date in the book so that anyone who wants to accompany you can. All right. Thank you.
Sounds good.
I don't know if you
Thank
want
you,
to stay
everybody.
for the discussion about the reso or not. You're welcome to. If not, thank you so much for joining us and letting us vent and letting us answer questions. All right.
Of course, and we'll
And
continue the
Frankie and
conversation.
Dusha. Thank you.
And Pat, are we also letting our friends from DDC go too?
Yes, I was saying, and Frankie, I was about to say, Frankie and Dushan, thank you again, as always. Thank you for coming to our meetings and offering all of the information that you have offered tonight. And if you want to stay, you're welcome to stay. If not, go and enjoy the rest of your evening. Okay? Am I, Frankie,
Thank you.
Dushan?
Yes, thank you very much.
We'll see you probably next month, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I don't know where to even start with this, Rezo. Lucian and
Pat,
our
let me pull up what we got. I think there's a lot. We don't have to use the exact reso, but I think there's a lot on there that
we have a lot of
is
points that we wanted to tackle.
easy to reuse. And, for example, we've got the list of streets that we have issues with. A lot of the background. I think all these whereases are not.
Well, let me stop and ask you, what are we asking for now?
Okay, well, I mean, I think that we still are asking for a prioritized capital program to rebuild these streets, but we're now also asking for priority emergency repair treatment. So that would, per the description, be an application of temporary asphalt to the most dangerous parts where the stones are shifting, or people can get their feet, ankles, heels caught and twist their ankle, fall. We'd like to see that covered up until the crew can come and rebuild those sections of the street that are the worst. Now, DDC and DOT both kind of say, curb to curb is a reconstruction, but prioritizing parts of it, that's something where their in-house crew can do, and that's considered a non-capital job. So I think putting in a whereas that describes the distinction between capital work and the in-house work will be called for, and then therefore be resolved to be added in addition to the request that they be rebuilt, to add one in that says they should be repaired, but first with temp asphalt and then with the resetting of stones and remortaring or grouting or whatever the term is. I also assume that we'll be striking this, be it further resolved. Well, no, I'm sorry.
Well, certainly we're taking out the call.
This one. The asphalting one.
Asphalting, exactly. The other thing I think we're calling for is that a thorough, I want to say inspection. I had the word a minute ago. Analysis, I guess.
Analysis. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, of the real problem, so that we don't have this happen again. I see Gerald has his hand up. Jump in, Gerald.
Yeah, I just want to say, actually two things. One, I want to take a step back. I think that Frankie or one of the DDC or DOT.
Dushan.
So, yeah, Dushan, thank you. Somebody had mentioned it, and I just want everybody to understand that typically you put down the way these are constructed is you have nowadays you have a base of concrete, 9 inches, which is substantial. Sidewalks are usually 4. Something with vehicles is usually 6. 9 is very substantial. And then there's usually a layer of, and forgive me, I've been trying to find the DOT detail. I can't find it, but typically there's a layer of sand, and then these cobblestones are set with a very, very tight joints. Like we're talking, an 16th, 18th, 1/8 of an inch, very, very tight joints. That keeps them from moving. It also keeps the water from getting into the joints. So I just want to make that clear for everybody. I don't know if mortar is put over top of it. I saw that in one of the whereases. That's what caused me to say this. The second thing is what we were just talking about, having a quality control person on board for any and all cobblestone repairs. I mean,
I need more detail. What does that mean? In your mind, what does that mean?
Obviously there's not much we can do when somebody shows up and decides to dig up a street with no permit, other than call 311 and report it. I think though, after the fact, because there are so few cobblestone streets as opposed to asphalt streets, that there needs to be, as I think Mitch or somebody said, there needs to be a single,
Mariama.
or Mariama, thank you. There needs to be a single point of contact, or rather a single inspector overseeing every repair of a cobblestone
Okay, so I have
street.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I have a question. Ed said that it takes though 2 to 6 weeks, that there is a DOT inspector that goes out to look at the work that has been done after whatever entity pulls up the cobblestones and then relays them themselves, which I didn't understand that it is not just one um one blah, 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 that agency.
But-
Yeah, one
but-
agency, I guess that
Pat,
lays them.
but they all pass the buck on each other.
No,
So
no,
what
but
Gerald
hold on,
is-
Mitch. Hold on,
Okay.
Mitch. What I'm trying to say is, so I'm not sure that what you're saying isn't being done.
So right. And okay, there's a couple ways to go about this. First off would be a mock-up. Require every person every entity, contractor who gets a DOT permit to tear up specifically a cobblestone street, to provide I don't know, 10-foot by 10-foot example of their work. That gets approved first by the inspector before they go and do an entire street, for example. And that allows the inspector to come out, see the quality of work at that point, and then continue on with, give them the approval to continue on with the rest of the work that needs to be done.
Okay, I'm not being argumentative, but
I understand.
supposedly there isn't, other than Harrison Street 10 years ago, the entire street isn't being done. It's being done piecemeal.
Right.
That, Con Ed will come out, they'll dig a hole, then they'll replace the cobblestone, and someone else will come out, telecommunications will come out, and they'll dig a hole and they'll replace the cobblestone, which again, I didn't understand until tonight. So they give you a schematic of how they're going to replace the cobblestone, and then they don't follow it. What do we do?
Right. That's what I'm saying. So a mock-up is an actual construction of that detail. Yes, they submit a drawing, which typically is, I mean, I've done this a million times with firms that I've worked for. You take the drawing off of the DOT website and you stick it in your drawing set, you submit it and say, this is what we're going to do. And then you're supposed to construct that. But a mock-up is having them construct a small portion of what they're saying they're going to do and have that approved first.
But you're saying in sketch, not an actual.
Not in sketch form, in actual construction.
Take the materials.
Right. Take the materials and say,
gotcha.
this is a
so a real
10
mock
foot by 10 foot. This is a maybe 5 foot by 5 foot area of the street that is an example of our work, and this is how we're going to do it.
Okay, so not opposed to this, but let's keep talking, everybody. So they do an actual
something?
mock-up.
Pat, can I ask Gerald? Gerald, would you think it would be a good idea? Everything you said, yes, and then having like a point person overseeing that mock-up, so it's like
That's what I
different
was trying to
agencies
get
can.
to.
Okay, I'm sorry, Pat, you go.
That's what I was trying to get to. So, Mitch, when you say a point person, do you mean a point person from the firm that's doing the mock-up or from
You know, that
DOT that has to look?
I'm not sure, but something like, you know, the equivalent of like, you know, the mayoral control of the school, or ombudsman, or Letitia James for attorney general, like not those people, but you know, the analogy of not an agency, but like a specific person
Okay.
or somebody overseeing, that's neutral, that can, between Con Ed, between
Okay.
the
Okay, Mitch, hold on a sec. So DOT is the agency, obviously, that's, you know, in control of this and in control of the streets. And so we do this mock-up and we take it to DOT, and they already have inspectors that are going out. So I assume that we want now that inspector, those inspectors who are in charge of going out to look at the work that's been
No,
done.
no, I would put an independent one, Pat, because if DOT has made some
What do
mistakes
we need
along
an
the way,
independent?
they're not going
No,
to, they're going to look to blame another agency, or it was the
but we
concrete, or it
haven't
was
had,
this.
that's not been our issue. Our issue has been that an independent contractor laid the street or several streets, and not only has an independent contractor laid the street, Harrison Street, that we're having the issue with, but other streets have been individual agencies that have come in and you know, dug up a 10-foot by 10-foot section and then relayed it. It is not DOT. It is a multiple of other
Maybe
agencies that
I'll
have
leave this
come
to
in.
Gerald or Laura that have more experience, but like an
I think
independent.
we've lost Laura.
Okay, well
Yeah,
then,
Laura had to jump off, unfortunately, but
All right, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I don't know. You know, and I'm not the one to make this decision. I'm just saying I'm not sure that this is going to help in any way. Keep talking to us. Go
well,
ahead, Gerald.
one other, Pat, if I may, one other thing that I could suggest is perhaps, I don't know what training DOT inspectors get specifically with cobblestones. I'm
yes.
sure they have all kinds of other training, but cobblestones are a very particular situation. Um, I am with Diane Lapson and others who have said this is first and foremost about public safety. I'm 1,000% with that. It's safety, you know, health and welfare. Um, in addition, though, this is also about a historic. These are historic assets to the city, and if you go around to other cities, you know, I'm thinking of a small town that I know of that has a covered bridge that's 200 years old. They've had somebody run into, they've had trucks run into the top of that covered bridge. I can't tell you how many times. They finally got wise and said, all right, we're going to stick up a metal chain here and limit truck traffic on this particular road. They can go around another way. But my point is, when it's a historic asset, which the city has called it that, you take extra special care. We're all paying our tax dollars, you know, and it's like it was said, we really need to take this to our local borough commissioner and our elected officials. They need to support us in getting these historic assets brought up to safety standards because they can be done.
So that's another thing we need to do. Then we need to call upon. Lucian, jump in here. I assume it would be Christopher, and it would be who else do we need to call upon? It's city, so it's our council person,
I
right?
think it's the dynamic duo would be Chris Marte and Mark Levine
Okay, so we need to call
in
upon,
all
so we
things.
can add that into our reso,
And
please.
this issue of like I'm seeing it on the screen, sunken sections. Absolutely. I mean, that could be anything from the original slab, even if it's a 9-inch slab, that slab could have been not tested properly and the concrete wasn't the right slump test or whatever, and the slab has failed. That could cause it may not be a sinkhole, it may just be that the slab failed, or the sand under the cobblestones have moved, or the
So that goes
cobblestones have
back
shifted. So yeah.
to what I was saying from the very beginning of when we started doing the reso, is that we're asking for an analysis
There has to be an
of,
engineering analysis done
right,
first and foremost, and they have people on staff who can go out and do that stuff. That they don't need to
Diane?
wait long time. They don't need to wait for capital budgets or anything else. They have budgeted monies for specifically that, and they have existing contracts with engineering firms who they can call up tomorrow and get them on the schedule.
So, Lucian, can you add those two things then? Follow up on Mark Levine and Christopher and get an analysis done.
Sure.
And Diane, jump in.
Well, along those lines, having someone from DOT, we discussed this already, who is the person to oversee, like we're talking about in Boston, the stones are perfect. Bruce Ehrman had said that all of these stones were put in too far apart originally, and cobblestones have a certain very close proximity to each other. Nobody evidently somebody should have gone and inspected all that work, and nobody caught that, or nobody took responsibility. So somewhere in here, I think with the analysis, we also need a dedicated person who could change from time to time, who will be responsible to oversee the work and make sure that the company, whoever it is, actually does the work properly. And if that means they have to take a class in cobblestone, so be it. But I mean, they need to assign a professional person to oversee this work so that we're confident it's being done correctly.
Well, it kind of goes back to they do send out, DOT does send out an inspector to look at the work that's been done, but then it goes back to what Gerald said, that we don't know
Right. We don't
whether
know
this person is well schooled in cobblestone laying, so we
Right.
don't know.
So I
Okay.
think it would be nice to put that in a nice way in your resolution. We would like to know who
It's yours also, darling. You used to be on once you're a community board member, always a community board member. Diane Stein, you have something you want to say?
Yeah, I think the word is that I'm thinking of is accountability. Like it's because it seems like, once the DDC builds the road, then it's the DOT. Like there needs to be some kind of accountability. And that's what I'm hearing. Maybe that could be, I don't know if that's the correct.
Yeah, I mean, I know what you're saying, but I don't know where Lucian, you want to help us here?
For accountability?
Yeah, I'm not sure where that.
Maybe our elected officials have to change that 18-month, the 18 months. That's a very short time to find out if cobblestones are.
So going back to this issue, that would be an issue of changing the law, which is not so much changing the 18 months for warranties, but changing what's considered what's called a statute of repose, which is, again, I think Alabama has 13 years. Most of the other states have 10 years, and many of them have 5 years after any construction work has been done. And that is not just about streets. That is literally any construction work. In fact, I'm.
Did you say repro or repost? What was that word?
It's statute of repose, REPOS.
Okay. Repose.
And here, I'll just read. Unlike a statute of limitations, the statute of repose begins to run at the end of construction or whenever services were last provided. So it's kind of I'm not an attorney. You got to get into that with a construction attorney, but that would be at a state level.
Dedicate at least an entire meeting to learning about that before we put it in a resolution.
That's probably a good point.
I mean, yeah, but I think that's a great thing to think about. But we definitely should do a little bit more research on our end.
Detta and Elizabeth. I know Elizabeth, you're an attorney, and Detta, you are. Is Detta still here? Do you two have anything to say about that?
What did you say, Pat? I didn't hear you.
Yeah, oh, so Gerald was just proposing that we put in this. What is it? Statute of repose.
Yeah, statute of repose. I mean, it's a construction legal term.
Do you know anything about that?
That basically extends the warranty, is my understanding, but.
I don't. I'm going to Google it, though. Statute of repose?
Yes.
Okay.
And Detta, you have anything
as it relates to construction law. And I can send
What-
you,
What are we, why are we referencing it in relation to what? Like, what are we trying to say?
Because we were told that after 18 months of the job of cobblestones being laid in 2005, 18 months later, the company who put them down was no longer responsible.
The
And
warranty ended.
the city could not call them to repair anything. And it cost millions and millions of dollars.
And
Okay.
as
Gerald is saying that in other
So
places, in other states.
Sorry,
kind of like a statute of limitations, right? So it takes away a plaintiff's ability to sue, let's say, after a certain period of time.
well, maybe you want to look into it for us, and then we.
Jared, Gerald, do you want to send me what you were talking about? You said you have something that you want to send me.
sure, yeah, I can send you a few documents on that. It would be, in particular, though, the American Council of Engineering Companies keeps a list of states, the statute of repose by states.
Okay.
And as I was said earlier, certain states, like Alabama, I think is the longest one. It has 13 years statute of repose, as opposed to, for example, state of Virginia is 5, New York has 0, but
New York currently remains the only state without a statute of repose for construction.
correct. There's reasons for that. And so correct. It is a can of worms, I'm telling you.
All right. So we're not going to put that in there, as Lucian said. We're not putting it in our reso, but maybe we want to have a meeting where this is one of our topics that we discuss. And see about making history. I want to ask Mark, because Mark has his hand up. Mark, what did you want to add?
Yeah, there are a few things I want to add. I think we should start off because everything's getting convoluted in this resolution. And I think we should start it off with the main concern is that we're dealing with an emergency situation. And I think that should be said right off the bat, in whatever language you want to use. Also include Beach Street between Greenwich and Hudson in the list, please, as well. We're having issues over there. The other thing,
Issues, Mark. The streets the cobblestones are coming up.
yeah, there's some issues there. It's not as bad as other streets. It's not a truck route, but trucks use it. Was a repair. This is to get to my next point. There was some repairs made where the cobblestones were picked up, and the same contractor who had very little experience put them in. So then it was cracking. They never let the cobblestones cure for the correct period of time. So I think the curing process, the proper curing time, should be mentioned in the resolution as well. That's a big issue. You can do everything right, and then if someone drives over it in 2 days, everything means nothing. If it doesn't cure for 30 days or 45, whatever the case may be.
Cobblestones don't need to be cured, though. Some
no, this is the concrete. The concrete needs to settle.
Is it called mortar? That's between them. What's it called?
Whatever the concrete in between the cobblestones.
What's it called?
It's concrete.
No, but is it called mortar or is it called something else?
No, it's just they pour concrete in between. Okay. Yeah.
All right. Anyway, I don't see the beginning of the resolution. Lucian, can you take it?
Yeah, I don't know. Lucian, you're taking notes. What's that? Rambling.
So I'm not sure we need to put all of that in. It's Lucia, can we see the beginning, please? Can we scroll to the top?
I have a couple of more things.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said, include Beach Street.
All right, so in the list you want to include Beach Street.
Yeah, and then I think we should mention that right off the bat that this is an emergency situation because of the safety issues. We should cite Vestry Street as an example of a 100-year-old street that's in very little disrepair, and that if this is done correctly, it would be fine. So I think it's important to cite Vestry Street.
before you continue, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just
Yeah,
want to get it
so
clear about what this resolution is trying to accomplish. And I don't know that we want to bring in everything. I think we
well,
just want to
well,
get these streets.
it gets to the end of this point is like the original construction for these streets, like I said, was tied in with the Harrison Street project. It had nothing to do with specifically Harrison Streets per se. It was just called the Harrison Street project. Was the name of the project? If I don't know if everyone remembers this, and it was a major capital project to repair, to replace water and sewer pipes and things like this. And while they were doing this, all those years of us requesting cobblestones every year, the city did say, all right, it looks like we can do it now. We'll tie it into this project. So if they can do that again for something else, maybe that's where the money can come about. So a suggestion that, as was done with the Harris Street project and the tie-in to replacing and repairing and installing cobblestones, could this be done again to refurbish what's there now?
Okay, but all I'm saying is I'm not sure that, again, that has anything to, what we really want to accomplish at the moment is we want temporary repairs work done almost immediately for
Right,
the streets that we're going to walk around and identify. Yes, right? All going
right,
to go on this little walk around and identify. I mean, we did it before, but we're going to do it again because Ed was not part of
right.
that, you know. So that's number one. We want the asphalt laid as a temporary fix for the streets that are in most need of immediate attention.
I don't
And
even know
then,
if you should say asphalt. You just say, please,
no,
the
he said
sections that are
asphalt.
dangerous,
No, he
please,
said
please
asphalt.
repair them as needed.
No, he said asphalt. We're going to say asphalt. And then the
Might be a
second
better
thing
way
that
to
we need
repair it.
done is that we need then to get some sort of, deadline, timeline on when they're going to come back and do the full repair. And I think that's what we're trying to accomplish. We're not
But
trying to write a book about how to do cobblestones, which we can do later on. But in this particular reso, I think those are the two. Am I right or am I wrong? I mean,
But isn't the end goal here to get these things repaired so they last 100
yes.
years? That should be I know we want to get things temporarily fixed, but the crux of it should be the reasons why and requesting that.
But
How
that's
about
what I'm saying.
how
Who's
about if we
talking?
I don't
put
think
in
it's
the
clear.
resolution, Mark, how about if we put in the resolution that we would like an ongoing discussion with whoever, with all of the that we could bounce ideas around with, because we don't really know how to tell them how to solve this. We just know what we need done.
Yeah, but we should request, like I said, we should request that it should be either tied to a capital project or a separate project, and it's an emergency situation, and it needs to be fixed now, in addition to the temporary repairs for immediate
Okay,
safety
but
concerns.
that's not going to happen. So the reality is what we
Well,
can
it's going to
get
happen
done.
or not. I mean, we have to get on the
Okay, but
record.
let's be realistic about what we can get done. And what he said we could get done is that we can get temporary asphalt repair of the streets in most need, the areas of the street, because they're not going to do the entire street, the area of the street that is in most need of,
I
attention.
get that, I
And
understand that, but if we
okay,
don't
and then the
request a
second thing,
permanent fix on the record, it's never going to be addressed.
but I'm saying the second thing is then to get a timeline on when they're going to come back and do a permanent fix. Those are the two things that we're trying to get accomplished. The temporary and the permanent. And I think that's what we want to get out of this reso. And we can't tell them how to do it, but we can, I mean,
Well,
somebody else jump in here.
Well, they
Am
did
I?
it before like I said, they did it before by attaching it to another capital project. We
Okay,
can
but I'm
say,
not
why not
understanding.
do that again?
Okay, but
Maybe.
I'm not understanding, and maybe it's just me. I'm not understanding what we want to accomplish. How is that got to be tied to something else? We don't need to tell them
Because
how to
that's how
do
the
it.
funding came about to get the cobblestones done in the first place. Because they were never going to do it on their own. It was never going to be done on its own. That was the opportunity that the city came up with and said, listen, we're going to tie it into this Harrison Street project. That's how we can get you your cobblestones.
Okay, but I
Now,
don't
you
think
weren't
it's
around
that.
at that time, so that's
They ripped up
Well,
all of the streets
yeah.
and they had to close them up again. And so
yes,
by one street at a time, they put cobblestone.
Mm.
But I think I agree with actually both of these things, but what I'm thinking is that I don't even know. People are going to hate the asphalt. By the way, when you see it, it's really disgusting.
Yeah, but it's what he said they do.
We should just say we need emergency repair, and then like you said, a timeline for permanent repairs. And we would be more than happy, maybe from Mark's point, we would like to have ongoing discussions about how this can also be accomplished, so that you have input to throw your ideas out to them. Because obviously, I'm going to be quiet. The thing is that they said it's already started. Remember at the last meeting, they said they already started repairing streets, but we don't know what streets they are, and we don't know what they're doing.
And that's why we're going to do the walk around.
So I think somewhere in here should mention that whereas the Department of it was DDC, I think, mentioned that streets were already being repaired. We would like a report on what they're doing to those streets.
Correct, Diane. I don't think they were talking about repairing these streets that are on our list. They have ongoing new projects that they're working on.
So what's new cobblestones?
Yeah. No, he said they're reusing old cobblestones, but I don't think that Lucian, am I crazy? Or I think what Deshant was talking about is a project that, when we have them come every other month and they talk about these projects that they're working on, I think that was what Deshant was referring to, where they said they're taking 90% of the old stones and cleaning them and then reusing them. It is not the streets that are on this list.
You can request a task force of stakeholders.
I know, but they're doing those streets instead of ours.
You can request this task force of stakeholders, like we do with other things, like the sewer lines and rats and all the other stuff.
Let me just hear what Lucian wanted to say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thanks, Pat.
We can't be on this all night.
Vestry Street is what he's referring to, where they're rebuilding a cobblestone street. I really urge everyone to go and take a look, especially if you have concerns about whether or not they are adhering to the specs with the appropriate amount of spacing between the cobbles and the mortar. But they are doing their best to reuse cobblestones on Vestry Street. One, it keeps costs down. But two, those are old stones, and so you want to try to keep the look as best you can. You need to use the same stones, because it's very unlikely that new stones will be quarried from the exact same place that the old stones were quarried. So matching the look is really important.
Diane, you said they're doing this before they do. The reason they're doing Vestry Street is because they're doing an infrastructure project. So it was a water main that they were reconstructing.
Right.
It doesn't have anything to do.
I think Mark was saying, what Mark was maybe referring to was a lot of the 9/11 money funded these reconstructions because there was an underlying infrastructure aspect to it. So the whatever was underneath the street was utilities were lowered or replaced, water pipes were enlarged, and then they rebuilt the cobblestone on top of everything else.
Okay, but I'm not sure how we tie in an infrastructure project with repairing these streets.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, the infrastructure is in, so
Right.
it's the street at this point.
Right. Mark, that's what I was trying to say is I don't, yes, 10 years
Leave
ago.
it up to the city. I mean, leave it up to them. They did it before.
But that's why I'm saying we don't need to tell them how to do it. We just want it done. So I don't care where they get the money from. I want them to do it.
I agree. We don't need to be
They're not going to do capital money on its own just to do this. They're going to have to they're going to need some kind of fix or trick or something.
All right. I'm not disagreeing with you. I just don't know how that ties in at the moment for this reso. So I think, Gerald, did you have something else you want to say?
I did. One, obviously the immediacy of the situation, it takes precedent, but for ongoing, something I might suggest that we could look at or continue to speak about is from an ongoing standpoint, most buildings now have the FISP requirement. They're required to be inspected every 5 years. Our building just went through it. So obviously pieces and parts of buildings don't fall on pedestrians. It's a safety issue. And that is on
You mean
the
local law 11? Are we talking about that?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And so facade inspection is done every 5 years. I don't understand why specifically historic cobblestone streets shouldn't be inspected at least every 5 years in a similar manner, especially since this is a safety issue. There has been somebody who has tripped and died as a result of defective
Not a
cobblestones.
bad proposal. Again, I'm not sure. Does it fit into this reso? I don't know. Let's continue to think about it. Let me ask, because we've got to get on with this. It's 8:45. Betty, you wanted to jump in here?
Yes, I was going to support you, Pat, with keep it focused. People are going off on all kinds of wild tangents that only dilute the purpose of this in the first place.
Yeah, and we
In
can
terms
always
of what
come back.
Excuse me?
We can always write another reso, taking it the
They're
next
about
step.
different things, right?
Yeah.
Let's keep this focused. The second part is, given what Mark was saying, I somewhat agree with him to ask for the emergency repair for the street, but also schedule the cobblestone rebuild for that repair area.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't
Yeah,
have
I
to tell them
think
how to do
those are
it. It can just be to reschedule the cobblestone rebuild.
right.
in
I
the
think those are
area.
the two things we're trying to get to in this reso, is to get the temporary fix and then to get a timeline of when they're going to come back and do the
Well,
final.
I wouldn't even ask for the timeline because I don't think you're going to get it. That was the whole point that
Okay,
I
then
think I was
then
talking about. The
how do you want
point
to word it?
is, bottom line, what we're asking for is, yes, fill it with asphalt because it's an emergency, or whatever they're going to use. This is an emergency repair, do it. But also schedule the repair, the cobblestone rebuild of that area, because that's also a temporary fix, and then it's not a capital repair.
Okay, Lucian, you got that?
Yep, all the above strategy.
Okay, so that Mark, that covers kind of some of what you're saying too. Jill, is there anybody else after Jill? Because we really need to just like wrap this up. Jill?
Okay, I'll make it quick. I do not think that funding is our issue. I think that the way this is written and the emphasis on asphalt it makes it seem that we're asking for asphalt, period. I think that we've got three separate issues going on in here. That I agree, we're asking for two solutions, but I think we need more emphasis that there needs to be an emergency attention to this, because people have died and more people will be hurt. And we need to address this before another person dies or is severely injured. I would focus that more, this reso more on that, and not worry about funding. And it just, when you read what's been written, it sounds like we want all cobblestones to be paved over with asphalt.
No, we
even though
changed
we
that.
don't.
We've taken that out.
Okay, that's all taken out.
Yeah, that's all taken out.
Okay, and then
mm,
the negative part about the cobblestones being non-compliant, is that still in? Is that still staying in?
I don't know what you mean that they're non-compliant. Do you mean the
If you
laying
can-
of them or the material?
Just the fact that cobblestones and streets in of themselves are not. Can you scroll down?
ADA
please?
compliant, are you talking about that?
Yeah, well, there was some language in this draft. Is it possible? Let's see, or go to the top. Yes, that cobblestone streets are exclusionary as commonly designed. These are all true things. And then the second, a further resolve that such difficulties are inconsistent. So it sounds like we're saying that we don't want cobblestone streets at all, but I think what we want to say is that these are, in effect, that these are the issues facing cobblestone streets. And as such, if we are going to have them, they need to be done well. Otherwise, and we may be saying this, but if you just read those two further resolves, it sounds like we're saying we don't want cobblestone streets.
Yeah, she's right. It means that What we're saying is when they're damaged, these are the things that happen. They're dangerous for.
Well, just remember, we're trying to be very specific also, and I'm not addressing that, Jill. Yes, you may be right. We may need to rework this, but what I'm saying is, those streets that are listed at the top, including Beach Street that Mark now wants included, those are the streets that we would like to have an emergency repair work done. That is number one, what we want to get done, right? And then second, we want those streets we want them then to come back and do the final repairs. We're not going to tell them how to do it. We're not going to obviously tell them when to do it. We want it done as soon as possible.
Agreed.
Those are the two things. So, okay, that's number one. The cobblestone streets of Tribeca may be rebuilt.
I'm talking I'm just talking about the two parts where we're saying they're exclusionary as they're designed and that they're inconsistent with the
It's
ADA.
true, but we could take them out. We could take that out.
Or you
because-
could change the language. Change the language. All I'm saying is when you read those two items, it sounds very much like we should not have cobblestone streets.
Yeah, the rest of the board won't vote for that. So she needs.
Do you want to suggest some language here?
Where is that? Yeah, I'm going to let you do it. Go ahead.
I was
But
going to let
right.
you do it.
I think
no,
what
I
she's
think
saying is that damaged cobblestone streets are exclusionary and not maybe as commonly designed, or maybe cobblestone streets are exclusionary when damaged because
or even
they do not.
Or
no, they're exclusionary. Period. But
these
okay,
problems
hold
are
on.
exacerbated. The exclusionary aspects of cobblestone streets are exacerbated even more
Okay,
so.
and remember, I'm just a facilitator. I am not the dictator, but this is how I feel about those paragraphs, is that at the moment, what we're asking for, that those couple of where be further resolved could be removed, and Betty may disagree with me, but they could be removed because what we're asking for specifically is we don't need to talk about the cobblestones in general. We want specifically to get a temporary repair of those streets that are listed at the top, including Beach Street now, and a permanent repair. So we could actually take out anything where we are discussing the merits or lack thereof of cobblestone streets. That's how I feel.
Right. I know. I agree. Betty's probably has something to say about it, but
no, Betty may or may not. Go ahead, Betty. You're on.
I kind of like what Jill recommended for rather than removing the cobblestone streets being exclusionary, because they are. I don't care what anyone says about they can be built so they aren't. They are.
They are. Right.
We agree.
So to say that cobblestone is exclusionary, but is exacerbated by,
right,
points it out, because I don't want to have it on record that, oh, nobody's ever complained about these problems.
Right.
That's why I wouldn't remove it completely.
Okay.
I would shift the focus a bit by doing, as she said, just insert cobblestone is exclusionary, exacerbated by.
So, Lucia, you got that?
Data repair, poor repair.
Yep, got it.
Okay, so are we taking out such difficulties are inconsistent with the principles of universal access? Are we taking that, be it further resolved out?
No, because they're dangerous when they're broken, and they are going against.
So we're leaving that in. What about the next one? Sunken sections of cobblestone roadway may indicate that there are problematic. We already discussed that, and so that's where we want the assessment of what the underlying problem may be. So we're leaving that in, right?
I wouldn't.
You would not. Who said that? Betty?
Yeah, no, I think it's kind of off to the side, given that you're specifically telling them what you want done. You want an emergency repair and you want a cobblestone rebuild.
And that's really what I want to emphasize, or I think like I said, I'm not the dictator. I feel that we should emphasize those two
Can we
things.
scroll up, please? Because I can't see the whole.
Yeah, I agree with Betty on that. It's not for us to determine the causes either. I mean,
Right.
Well, the mayor's office said it might be sinkholes. So
Okay, but at
that's
this
why
point, let's leave
Right.
that, and we want an assessment of what the problem
an
is.
assessment. Yes.
Okay. So sunken sections, are we going to keep that? Sunken sections of cobblestone roadway may indicate that they're problematic. Yes, no?
That's speculation. I mean, what's the point of putting
Okay, take it
speculation
out.
as a be it resolved?
Let's move on. Take it. Can we take that out, Lucian? The sunken sections, that whole bit.
Yeah, I'm not editing in real time, but I am noting, and I'm going to go
Okay.
back to the transcript
And
to
then
read
be
those
it further
reso.
resolved that if there are no existing historic, okay, so we found out that there are existing, so we're taking that out. That there are existing historic protections for the cobblestone streets. So that has to come out also. So what's our final? So our final is that we want a temporary fix and we want a permanent fix.
And then maintenance after that. I think 3 things: temporary fix, permanent fix, and continued maintenance, like was suggested by Gerald. He said
Okay.
in other states they do it every 5 years or whatever.
And I mean, I think that we could come back to the, yes, I agree with that. And then I think we could come back to cobblestones and go even further. Again, Elizabeth can look into that. What was that? Not repost. What? Gerald, what was that again? Statute of
The statue of repose. Yeah,
yeah,
well, that's
right.
a
We can
bigger
look
can
into
of worms, like I
that.
said. That's
We
huge.
can look into like Mariama and
You're going to have the
somebody else.
entire construction industry in New York City
Well, of course they will be, but we can look
fighting
into
that
it.
one. So,
Yeah.
but we can talk about it, sure.
Yeah. And then Mariama was interested in having Mariama, you still on? Did we lose Mariama? You still here?
Maybe she stepped away.
Let me check the
No, I see her.
attendees
Yeah,
section.
Mariama was interested in having,
What
and
is she?
Gerald, I think you also proposed that we have some sort of, and maybe
Two
Mark did
Mariamas.
also, that we have some sort of committee or agency or way of.
Oversight.
Yes,
Well,
oversight.
accountability, I
You
think,
said
was the other
oversight.
word, right? Oversight
Yep.
and accountability.
Oversight
Yeah.
and accountability. So those are things we can come back and visit.
The one thing I just wanted to see if we wanted to add, I touched on, and Lucian, if you'd kindly scroll up, is when we request the emergency repair, to put in some strong language that people have, that someone's already died, people have been hurt, and this isn't, must be addressed immediately before any more people are seriously injured.
I love it. What do people have to say about it?
I think that's essential since you're asking for an emergency repair. You need to bolster that.
Thank you. All right. Does everyone kind of get the gist of how we're changing this reso?
Yes.
Yes. Any questions? Any more real short comments?
Only that there is a
It's
really
9:00.
good there is a really good article from July 18th, 2010 that explains Tribeca in particular in the New York Times. It is Restoring New York Streets to Their Bumpier Pasts. I
Did
put
you
the
send it?
yeah, I sent it to
I think I sent that to Lucian already. Gerald, can you give us your email address? I have a lot of these articles going back 100 years.
sure. Yeah.
From the New York
It's
Could you put it in the link, Gerald?
I put it in the community board host and presenter link.
Okay,
in the
you know
chat.
me.
So
Mimi knows that I'm not a techno person, so I won't know how to get to it. So if it could just go someplace where Lucian can, when he has a moment, send it out in an email.
and I just want to say there are 15 miles of cobblestone streets according to the article across the 5 boroughs. Only 15 miles.
It's not a lot. Okay, can we vote? Are we prepared to vote? Do I hear anybody who isn't prepared to vote? Does anyone need an explanation? Okay, no one's saying anything. Jill, your hand is up. Is that from before? Jill? Are you on mute, Jill?
Yeah, sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. Put it down.
Did you need to say something else? Your hand? Explanation?
Down.
Anything?
Nope.
No? Mark, your hand is up. Mark, did you need to say something else? Mark? You're on mute. Mark? Maybe he stepped away. All right, it seems like no one else needs an explanation. No one needs to add anything. Can we do what we normally do now? Is there anyone who is not voting in favor? Is there anyone who's objecting? Anyone who's abstaining? Okay, if I don't hear anything, it means that we are passing this reso with the corrections that we've discussed and that Lucian will put into our final resolution. Ah, God, okay. Thank you, everybody. I need a glass of wine now.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everybody.
thanks, Pat.
Thanks,
Thanks,
as
Pat.
always. I
And
love
Lucian.
our committee. Gerald, thanks for coming. Dushant, you're still here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dushant.
Anybody else who has come that's not on the committee and has helped add information, we really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I'll see everybody full board, I guess.
Before you go,
Mhm.
the last item, everyone, please
Oh, the 9/11.
we're going to look to, yeah, the 9/11 reporting bill. CM Marte's office has requested that they weren't available to come, so they requested that we postpone that 1 month. So please,
Could you just
put
give
on
us a
your
5-minute rundown on what that bill was?
yeah. This is actually harkening back a couple of years. There was a request by this committee to ask the city of New York to direct its agencies to preserve all records
Oh,
that, especially the Department of Education, that could prove that someone was in Lower Manhattan during the time that the Victims Compensation Fund and the World Trade Center Health Program require. I think there's a term that Mariama used, but that you were there either during the time of the attacks or the aftermath. So there's a very strict standard, and DOE records would certainly prove for young people who were in school at the time that they were there. Should they, God forbid, develop any symptoms that are covered under the VCF and wish to turn to those programs for assistance, um, hopefully those records would still be there for them. But that would require, I think, some additional action by the city to
yes.
preserve those records, and only for those who were in any of those schools, daycares, anything that they may hold records for during that time period. So that's the gist of it. I'm sure there may be some
Oh,
other
yeah.
agencies that we can think of that may also have records of those
Mariama?
sorts. But yeah.
I'm sorry. Mariama, you still here? Did we lose her? Because I know what you're talking about. The other night at the
I'm
new
here. Yes.
yeah, the other night at the new Downtown Democrats meeting, Chris came and talked about this. Were you at that meeting, Mariama?
I was, yes.
Yes. So
So
if you wanna add anything?
I would just add that the council member was clear to report that this thus far in its current state is more of a reporting bill. That's what I think how he coined it. And not as much as what I had thought it was, and what Lucian seems to have also thought, um, something requiring maintenance of records. So he was calling a reporting bill. He's calling on the DOE to, I guess, report on information that they have about the students and maybe their whereabouts, so that we can try to locate them. But
Yeah.
currently in the bill, it's not written that the records be maintained, is what he clarified at NDD.
Okay. So next month, this will be an item on our agenda, and maybe we can get Trisha to come, since it's about students. I don't know if it's something that she might want to, join us in discussing, but that will be one of the items on their agenda. Then we'll have, as usual, every other month, we have DDC come. So I always ask everyone if you have any topics that you want to add to the agenda. I think we have something, but I can't remember what it is. Please let
And there was
Lucian,
something
Miriam,
I wanted to add too. I don't remember what it is right now,
right.
but
I
I'll
think you
go through
wanted
my,
to add something.
yeah.
Yeah, so we'll have that discussion and we'll try to keep it. I was trying to keep a short meeting. It's 9:08. Let's go.
Oh, I remember. I wanted
One
to
more
add
announcement.
the
Wait.
statue.
Somebody has their hand up.
I wanted to
That was
add the
Martin.
Sally Hemings statue. That's what it is. The Sally
Oh,
Hemings
Sally
was
Hemings
forced.
statue?
Yeah, she was forced out of a streetcar in our neighborhood back
Sally
in the.
Hemings? Not Sally Hemings. Sally
Not Sally
Hemings
Hemings.
was Jefferson. Yeah.
Yeah, Sally Hemings.
Wrong black woman.
Don't all look the same. contrary to my statement.
Yes, the woman who was forced, and we will have that. We can have that
Yes,
discussion. I think that's really interesting for people to know.
yes. Okay.
Okay, so
Thanks.
add that, and we'll try to make a short meeting next month.
Yeah.
Lucian, you
Hold
had
on.
something else?
Well, I did have one more thing, but Scott Payne is here. He's with Water Street. Scott, did
Yes.
you have an update?
Hi, Scott.
Yes, I do. Good evening, everybody. I'll make it short and sweet. As you know, tomorrow is the Wall Street Walk and
Race.
Run a thon, and that's going to be starting around 5:30 or 6. So our contractor along Water Street is going to just be doing some little, last minute odds and ends, making sure all the potholes and stuff are, nice and smooth for the walkers and runners tomorrow. And
Oh,
we'll
not for
just
us who live here.
that too. That too.
Good.
And so we're embargoed actually starting from 2 p.m. just so everybody can get set up for the event. But Friday we'll be back to work with excavating for all of the utility work. And yep, back to normal Friday, and come Monday we'll be doing the same thing.
Scott, thanks so much. As usual, as always, thank you for letting us know.
No problem.
Hope
And I
everything is
really
well with
enjoyed
you.
listening to the Cobblestone.
Oh, good, good.
Yes.
All right. Again, I thank everyone for coming. Enjoy the rest
Pat,
of
I'm sorry,
the evening.
Pat. I'm so sorry.
Yes.
I'm so sorry.
Not ending
This
meeting.
is
Yes.
my only update. This is my only update. I'm going to get to it and I'm done.
Okay.
I'm going to be sending around guidance from the borough president's office about the next phase of meetings. We are scheduled to go back in person after June 8th. It looks like maybe that may move to June 14th, depending on what we find out about the governor's emergency orders. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to get more info tomorrow. But according to the new law that was passed in the state budget earlier in the year, just a tad bit earlier in the year, one of the requirements will be that members will need to keep their cameras on. And there's a reason for that, and that is that quorum is only maintained when the members are present. So if your camera is off and you walk away, it's unclear if we still have quorum. So for members who are remote after June 8th at this point, that will be technically we should do that now. It really matters most at full board, and that's when we're going to make the announcement that that's going to be something that we require. But just everyone who's, if you know somebody who only calls in with the phone, they need to use a computer with a camera, or else the remoteness doesn't count towards quorum. Now, a lot of this is moot because we need to have a quorum starting after June 8th in person. We can't have a remote quorum after June 8th. Members are still required to have their cameras on though. So
Jill,
there's a
thank
lot of
you,
like
Jill.
moving pieces.
Does
His
this mean I
Jill's
have to
camera
get,
isn't working.
yeah, does this mean I have to like get a new computer?
Yes.
No,
Well, it
I'll
means
use,
that if you want to be remote when we are doing in-person media, you have to either be in person or you have to have use your phone or use a computer with a working camera.
yeah, no, I can use my iPhone. It's not a problem.
No, but that
Yeah.
will require people to get a working
Address.
computer.
clothes on.
Some people will have to. And what does it mean for people that are on the phone that are calling in?
But you
No,
can
they
see.
won't. They won't be able to vote or count towards
Oh.
quorum at the full board meeting.
But people who have, I mean, I used to use my phone. You could use your phone, can't you?
Yep.
If you
Yeah,
have
and
a
have a
smart,
camera on your phone.
believe it or not, I know people that still don't have smartphones. But yeah, if you have a smartphone, you should be able to.
Diane Stein is raising her hand. She's admitting it. But at least you have a computer that has a camera, Diane.
There's also issues though with people's, like, if you don't have enough memory and in your computer, then when you're running your video and the audio, it can cancel each other out and create problems. But
So the state of New York, state
bandwidth
of New
and
York
stuff.
is not going to cry over our computer issues. They are going
exactly,
to fire. So let me know if you have issues.
or a
I'm
bandwidth
here to help
issues.
You know
you
what? All I can tell
troubleshoot.
you is that the COVID rate is on the upswing, and so I'm
Yeah.
hoping that they're going to,
I
say
think
that
it's
we
going to
can
get
all.
extended. I'm
Yeah.
hopeful, but tomorrow the executive committee will be discussing what extraordinary circumstances will permit members to
Woven.
continue to meet remotely. Not everyone. Remember, the majority of the members technically have to be in person, but there are extraordinary circumstances which will permit some members to continue meeting remotely. Health issues, child or other sort of caretaking plans
Parents.
have
Yeah.
fallen through, et cetera, et cetera. If you
Age,
have,
people, age.
Age, if
well,
you're over
Age.
65.
Oh,
well,
please.
if
We're still capable of
you
getting
all
to a
have to,
meeting.
it's going to be discussed tomorrow. You don't have to you don't have to convince me. You have
Right.
to convince the executive committee.
Right.
I will share what other boards are going to pass, but I just think that everybody, needs to be aware that this is where it's not going to be like it shouldn't be a simple thing. It should be an extraordinary thing. So
Right.
but the public can always come remotely. We're going to keep it set up so the public and other, visitors, presenters will be able to attend remotely, but the members, the majority have to be in person after June 8th, unless, We'll see.
Right. All right.
That's it. Now I'm done.
That's it.
Great,
That's the last.
cheery.
Everybody's sure that's the last thing they want to say. Bob.
Ciao for now.
Bob has his hand up. Why, Bob?
Yeah, I have to raise my hand as an extraordinary case. I've had terminal cancer for 21 years, and I really slug it out to get to these meetings. I'm at a meeting now of our condominium board. I struggle to do lots of public work, but my doctor would never allow me to go to a public meeting in any of those
Bob,
small
I have
rooms.
no doubt that you will
That
be
you'll be right.
accommodated by this policy.
Exactly.
And I really feel like people might not like my voice or whatever, but I really feel like I represent some good ideas sometimes. So I want to retain the ability to vote, even if I really don't want people watching me in pajamas.
Your
I agree
voice
with
makes
Bob.
me smile, Bob. When I hear your voice, I always smile.
I agree
Thank
with
you.
Bob, Lucian.
Bob, we'll work this
I
out.
think that he's.
I agree with Bob as well, but I think it will be worked out. As of yesterday, we were at New York City was at high orange level.
Orange
So
level, exactly.
it would be crazy
done.
to not
The
continue.
last vote happened.
Yeah.
Okay,
Lucian,
Lucian, I think
I'm
we
a
should.
community board member. I have to do this. I understand. I went in here, so I was even too loud, even though I was out there.
I can.
Huh?
Okay.
I
Okay.
can stay
Benny.
after. I can
Bob's
stay
being
after and answer
reprimanded.
questions.
All right. There's too many
Yes,
voices
I did.
going on. I don't know what's
I
happening.
tried to be as quiet as possible. I'm not trying to bother anyone.
Okay, Bob.
But I
Bob.
have to do this and I have to do that.
Bob. We can hear you and whoever you're talking to.
No, I
Adios.
just hope they keep on extending. People keep on raising their fucking hands. I just
Pat,
wanted to go. It could have gone away
Okay.
20 minutes ago.
Bitch, hold on a second.
Keep on going.
Betty wanted to say something. She had her hand up.
I just wanted to clarify. So if somebody is considered under these extraordinary circumstances, whatever they are, most of them would not be permanent, correct? It would be on a month-by-month basis or meeting-by-meeting basis. Correct? Not correct?
Depending on the nature of it. But
I've been
listen,
in this
I
thing
can.
for 21 years without
Bob,
it's
hold on,
incurable.
Can I just hear Lucian?
So why don't we do this? Why don't we conclude the meeting, since this is not actually germane to quality of life for the most part? I can talk to you all, and other people can go. I can stop the recording, and then I can answer some questions. All right,
Thank you.
I'm stopping the recording.
Okay.